Welcome, everybody, to the RLPC Redirect Podcast special episode to finish what I promised you guys we would do last time, which is our rankings of P4 from A to Major. We're going to talk about teams. I called this segment, I think, like disappointment or improvement from the beginning of the season, something like that. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna go through each team and give our opinions. This is a live episode. This is special live for you guys. So if you have any questions, you can also ask those in chat, and we will try to answer as many of them as appropriate. That said, I got a little bit of a different crew for me today. I've got LSM back on the desk, not at work today. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing all right. And then, of course, we've got Klopp. He's back. How you doing, Klopp?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Still annoyed that you didn't get me the 3-1. You had to make cubics right with the 3-2. But Max is on an island once again today, so he won't be joining us. But you've got us here and ready to go to rate these. And as always, the man behind the scenes, we have Mike, our streamer, is in the background helping us stream today, but he's got some work to do, so I'm not sure he'll be coming through that much. But we'll go ahead and we'll just, start it straight and go through here, and I'll take a look at chat in just a moment. And I want to start with single A. Now, my monitor's freaking out, so this is going to be very bright for you guys. Sorry about that. But I want to start with single A. And I'm going to go ahead and throw the first team on there. The way we did this last time, guys, if you guys didn't get to tune in, is we'll each, pick a couple teams we want to throw up there, and then we'll start to just go through and group them, and I'll just throw them up there on the block in order. But I want to start with the Wranglers. I mean, 8-2, a couple of interesting losses. I know their most recent one hurt them a little bit, but overall, I mean, they're almost guaranteed for playoffs. I did not expect this team to be arguably the best in A. I thought they'd be okay, but I didn't really know much about it, and it's a pleasant surprise for me. Would be my rating of this team.
Being the best does confuse me. I didn't expect them to be this roster compared to at the start we thought Embers, I thought Tempest would be better in the long run, which I mean they're really close. But I mean the Wranglers, just their goal differential and everything else shows that they're better right now, and I think that actually does kind of throw me off a little bit.
I agree with you. I expected them to be a tier team, and they're a top tier team right now, and really, really cool to see different teams than we.
Mm-hmm. Well, so to answer your question, Hitshot, this is A to Major. We already actually did Mav and Indy. So if you're interested in Mav and Indy, because I know you're an Indy person, that VOD is on Twitch, and I'm still working to get it on Spotify, but it is on Twitch. So you go back, you watch our episode on Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday.
And we'll have that up for you there. Yeah, so it's surprising in one sense, just again, because you wouldn't. I just really didn't know the players for me, like to be like, oh yeah, this is a good team, because the org especially, we're like half and half doing well. So not super surprising, but still, especially with their stat lines, so it's a positive for them. Clint, let's go with you next. I mean, brother, who do you want to talk about? Who's a surprise, either good or bad, or what do you want to talk about? Which team up on here in A?
I think I'm gonna go with my org and go with the Leopards. I think people were sleeping on the Leopards a little bit, and I think 6-4 is a little harsh, but I think that if they make playoffs, if they continue to be strong, they're gonna make a run, be a contender for sure. I don't know if they'll be able to beat Embers or Wranglers, Stallion, Tempest. I think they can definitely compete with them, but it's just gonna turn out on the day they make it happen.
Okay. Yeah, Max, he came out when we started this and was like, yeah, Leopards, we're slept on. We're ready to go. We're getting it done. Now, 6-4 is not like an incredible number one, but I think it's really good, particularly because of their division, right? Like, we had thought the Cougars would be a top tier team. They're slouching at 5-5. Like, you're barely below the Stallions, who are 7-3 and easily catchable, right? I mean, you've got I think Chase on that team or someone like that, and so that's free. But I think that they're doing pleasantly well, and they're on track to make playoffs, whether they take that guaranteed spot or a wild card spot.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. What team are you talking about right now? I was kind of distracted.
The Leopards, the 6 and
Leopards.
14 plus 17 goal differential Leopards. Of course, this is Max's team, aka Vegan RL.
Thoughts on this team? I think they've done better than expected. Like this team, I think two of them played in A last season. One wasn't on the team, that being Salmon, and then Max obviously coming up from Maverick. And with that situation, I think this team did a lot better than I thought they would. The fact that they're doing better than the Cougars, I do think they will be taking, as you said, that wild card spot, most likely, because I think the Cougars recently fell apart, if I remember correctly. So I think,
Yeah, they had some drama. They had some really bad losses that they just didn't seem to recover well from. So now it's Vic, who has obviously 0 series played, and he's now their top player. So they lost their top player, Kanga, Dad, and Wolfie Licious. And I did see there was a clip, and again, I'm not going to put this on the media team, and I know some people are going to be sad about that, but I'm not going to show it. But Wolfie was definitely not happy with this team, and definitely, the team was not happy after a big Game 5 loss the other day. So who knows what these guys are going to do going forward? And but we can talk about them now actually as we do. The audience did say, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't just me, so they did say something. Klopp, just so you know, you start to cut out at the end of all your sentences, and I think it's probably got to do with your mic sensitivity or something.
I'll change it here.
But as we say that, and as he gets that fixed, for the Cougars, right, they're number 3 in Predator, right below these Leopards, and LSM. I'll let you throw somebody else up here in just a second, but they're, like we said, they had to change their roster. They had some drama. They keep going to Game 5s, they lose. Kanga being the only one that's played every series. We thought this team would be a lot better. We actually thought they'd probably be number 1, and they struggled, right? 5-5. Now they're still in the playoff hunt, but sort of just barely, and it's going to be a long road for them. They really can't afford to lose any going through the rest of the series, or the rest of the season, I should say.
yeah, definitely. I mean, with the way they were playing before, like they had a lot of good moments where I think with that loss of that one player, they should still be able to do well, but it's really gonna matter on Kinga and Wolfie, those two being the 2 remaining ones. And we're really gonna have to see how they get this third into their chemistry and they proceed to keep playing like that.
The thing is that they're still within reach. They're only 1 game behind the Leopards, but with a pretty significant roster shift, it's going to be interesting to see how they incorporate and make that work.
Who did they lose again? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't.
I'm trying to look for it, honestly. I knew they signed Vic out of free agency, but I don't remember who they lost. I'd have to look. Maybe they traded somebody away. I'll find it eventually. But you're right. Especially because it's your top player, right? It's supposed to be the guy that makes your franchise, if that makes sense. They did lose Cam. Okay, right. I think didn't he have college or something happen? Wasn't the stated reason? And he he left or something. The server and everything. I can't remember. But either way, yeah, I would say disappointing, right? Would be our rating for this team. But you're right.
I agree.
Still in the playoff hunt. So I mean, you got the goals last, right? They've scraped together a few quality wins, but they haven't quite got it done yet. So LSM, who do you want to talk about next year?
I want to talk about Klopp being purple on stream.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening to my
Oh
camera.
my.
Oh,
It
my.
reminds me of Cubics, right? Like every time I get him on here to help me do some of the casting work, my man's camera just goes wild.
Klopp is purple. All right,
Go.
but looking at these teams, really my standout, it's not going to be a team I think is still in that wild card race. It's going to be really the goals have been the biggest disappointment to me this season, because I know Bidong's a good player, like he's a good A player, and him and Spacey last season really did good things for the goals. But even then, even last season, Clutch kept stepping up and helping them out. But just from stats and from what I've been told from Bidong, this team isn't what it was last season. Like this, even with their roster now, I was expecting a wild card team at least, and they're 3-7. And I really wanted to point them out because like that sucks. I know this team can do better if they start stepping up in certain ways.
Yeah, so I like how I could hear the ban notification on his incredibly bright light mode Discord up until the moment you were like, no, B-Dong's pretty good. And then I could see him slowly put it back in his back pocket for the future. But even when you look at these guys' stats, it's actually not that bad. And then you go, well, why are they 3-7 with a negative 29 goal differential? If like all their save stats are above a 1.0, like B-Dong's got a 0.94 goals per game. Like I don't know what the problem with this team is. Like why they just can't get it done. They just, I guess, don't have the winning it factor. You'd heard good things about Mina, but only 3 series played. I mean, I really don't know what happened to this team. I think you're right in that they're a disappointment. I would have thought they would have been a better team. Now they are in a hard division, right? Like it's a very close Predator division. But I feel like especially against like the Cougars who had their struggling route and stuff, those were wins maybe you should have taken. So I don't know how this team became a feeder team, but it is rough. I think I agree with you. It is a disappointment team or disappointing team. I don't want to say they're a disappointment. They're just disappointing. Don't
Yeah.
yell at me, Danger. Don't yell at me again.
Um, even though they're in a tough division, I don't think any of the teams in that division are unbeatable. That
Mhm.
on any given day you could beat those teams, but it just seems like they're just completely out of sync, and it's unfortunate. Then again, we don't know if they'd actually make playoffs if they were playing the way that we expected them to, but it would have been a much tighter race.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say definitely. I agree with that, and I think that the two teams at the top being the Science and Leopards are gonna have to fall apart for them to even have a shot at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think it's likely. I honestly think goals are probably eliminated at this point by player. Because remember, right? We have about I think 8 games left, or so, something like that, before playoffs. So I mean, this is when I talk about that those early wins. It might not seem fair because teams evolve, but we're basically reaching trade deadline, and a lot of teams are already decided, right? Those feeder teams are pretty much out, unfortunately, even with 8 left, because you would need other teams to lose a lot, and that just really isn't probably going to happen, particularly for this team. I'll go ahead and just pass this back over to Klopp since I did bring up the Cougars earlier. Klopp, who do you want to talk about next? Here for May.
I want to talk about the minors simply because Rogue Paperclip's on it, and I played with him my very first season. Yikes! I'm sorry for all of you. Uh, that it reminds me of being on the Vulture season 12, and it's miserable. And going into every game day, just feeling like you've already lost is just not an enjoyable experience.
Is it
So,
attitude, personality, or game style that you're talking about here? For those that don't know him.
um, game style mainly.
Hmm.
I think Rogue Paperclip's a good guy. I like him, but it just didn't. Him and I never synced up. I played with Lil Taco and him season 12, and it was just hard to find rotations, and it never really panned out. And I just feel bad. So I wanted to say I'm sorry to Rogue Paperclip.
Yeah, you did miss it, Kanga. Yeah, we are live, and you did miss the Cougars, which we basically said I think our overall verdict was a disappointment, right? 5-5, not what we thought you would do. Third in your division, still chances, but definitely not what we thought you were, especially now with the roster change. On topic of the minors, you remember in preseason, and if we go back and we rate our preseason predictions at the end, I'm going to be big sad because I thought this team would be really good. They looked good in preseason. I thought they'd be a dark horse team, and I said so. And now we sit at 1-9, negative 31 goal differential. That's bad too because you're the goals and you're 3-7 with a negative 29 goal differential, and you're the minors 1-9, negative 31. So they're very equivalent. But you're right. They made a roster move, right, to 0 with X here. I don't think it helps this team. They don't look good. They don't look pleasing. They have Itch Jair in here. He's boosted their stats a little, but they still can't get the dub done because a one man doesn't make a team.
Well, and he's only played 4 series too.
Yeah, and Sushi stats, oof, those are rough. They aren't Grambo rough yet, but they're rough, right? And all love to you, Grambo, but we'll talk about that when we get to major. Barely above 0.7 at his highest, and that's saves per game. So rough. Big disappointment for me. This is not a team that's going to make playoffs. They're pretty much already done. That whole org actually is kind of struggling. I think the Voyagers are doing okay. But it is, I mean, too, the other problem for that is that you're in not a weak division, but a weaker one, right? Like a one in which you probably could have overtaken the Titans and or the Jesters for that second wild card slot. That's obviously not going to happen now. Maybe you can overtake the Titans. Definitely aren't overtaking the Jesters or the Wranglers. Pretty big disappointment team for me. But what about you, LSM?
Yeah, I mean, they, I don't know. The players on here, I only know one of them, and I tried him out last season, and it just was not like what I thought. So I don't have enough information really to give an exact opinion. I mean, it sucks that they're this low, and yes, it sucks that they're behind the teams they are. Because like, if y'all don't know, keep the Titans right now. I'm gonna put it how Trotz put it. We call it keeping up with the Titans because there's it's like keeping up with the Kardashians. There's a lot going on right there, and if the fact that a team's underneath him right now that's kind of rough.
It is live, Grumbo. I see that. I just was throwing that out there because it's the only point of reference I've got. Not to call you out. And again, guys, you got to remember that this in particular, the podcast, is our view of things. It's personal view. It is not RLPC's view. It is not our view as admins. It is not our view as GMs. It's just our view as players. So don't add us, okay? Because this is just literally three guys talking. Also, when we say disappointment again, I need to put this out there because I know some people took this the wrong way for the Mav one. You're not a disappointment as a player. We're not saying you are a disappointment. We are saying that we are disappointed in where the team is at versus our preseason thoughts of where you would be. Right? You are not a disappointment. I need to reiterate that. I know some people were upset. Don't mod mail us. It is the team as a whole where we thought they would be. So I got to throw that out there for PR and people and all that kind of stuff. But it's 1-9 is not where I think these guys thought they would be. Not where I thought they would be. Is rough. It's rough times out here. This is the kind of team I think where you just try to finish the season out, and you just sort of see what you can salvage, I guess, right? See what wins you can take off teams. See where you need to get better as like players. And maybe, what was the problem? Maybe it was a roster issue or something. They didn't play well together. But you just sort of do what you can to salvage the season, maybe get like a 4-9 record or 4 and whatever record. That's not possible. It's 18 games, but you know what I mean? Try to salvage a win here or there and regain your draft stock and try to go into the next season either on a different team probably or maybe the same team depending on how the GM rebuilds it. LSM, let's go back to you again. What do you think? Who you want to talk about next?
I already mentioned the whole keeping up with the Titans. So honestly, I don't know. I mean, for the most part, every team's really doing how I expected. I think the Pelicans are doing a little better than I thought. Along with the Rattlers, I thought, but I didn't know much about both these teams, and I thought they would definitely probably be a little worse off. Um, I wish Genesis was doing better, but they're doing better than last season, so that's good. And then the Embers really, I don't think they're coming in as a storm like we thought. They're supposed to be best player has the worst stats on the team, so yeah, that's really my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that. Oh no. Serve. Serve, what's going on, buddy?
Give your thoughts here then, Klopp. What do you think of this team?
I think they're a solid team as long as Serve doesn't shoot the ball. Serve has 0.39 goals per game. And he's not assisting all that much either. He has the second most assists per game, but he's at 0.55. I
Okay.
I just don't know like what your role is on the field looking at your stats.
Oof. And he's in chat. He's ready
I
to
know he
go.
is. I know he is.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, you're 6-4 with a plus 17, so clearly the team is getting it done when they need to. Uh, but you're right. I actually would say though, this is a team who is more positive for me than what we had thought in the beginning of the season in terms of just, I didn't really know what to expect again from this team. I thought maybe a mid-tier team. They're like mid-ish to low high for me right now. And a nice souffle level or whatever you want to say. I'm not a souffle chef. It's You're right though that 0.39 is a little rough. It's not the worst in A, but it's certainly not the best. But their assist stats actually across the board are really bad, right? So he's second on the team to a guy who only has 2 series played, so that's a little inflated. And I know that because I literally have the highest assist per game in major, but I've only played exactly 4 games. So yeah, that can be a little inflated. And so he's got a good best assists. He dishes it to his teammates every once in a while. Saves, he's there. He's present. Listen, okay? It's still important that he shows out, right? Because there are some teams who just can't field their players. So at least he comes out for these boys. And on the whole, I think they have a shot, right? Like even though Fort's on that team, and I know Clump from you always say Fort is bad.
I can't roast him today. He yelled at me one too many times. I'm gonna hurt his feelings again. I can't roast him today.
All right. Well, they are second, right, in the Elements division. Now they're close with Genesis, so you have to be careful. Even the Eskimos for that matter. But 6-4, so second right now, guaranteed for playoffs with wild cards. And still better than the Jesters, who would be the 4th wild card. So they actually be 3rd wild card slot and play second position in this, which would come down between right now Tempest and Wranglers, and I think it would go to like head to head and conference and all kinds of other stuff. But you're holding strong, and you actually do have a possibility. They have the closest possibility to catch the Tempest if the Tempest, for some reason, start to slack off. But so I think for me, my rating pleasantly surprised for this team and for their prospects going into playoffs. They will though need to figure out this goals per game situation, not just serve, but as a team, right? Yeah, you're plus 17, but I think your shooting accuracy is my concern with this team. Noticing that they're plus 17, but nobody has above a 1.0 goals per game, other than again Smurf, who's only played 2 series, a little inflated probably. Like you've got to figure out how to shoot well, and that's something they don't really know how to do as of this moment. But guys, what are your like overall thought? Right, you're pleasantly surprised. You're disappointed. You thought this team would be like the number 1 best A team ever.
I think mainly because of how much that Trotz talked up Koala and Surf. And I've seen Serve and Koala play. I played with both of them too, and I think they're good players. So I was kind of backing him. So that's where I'm at.
All right, LSM, what do you think of this team?
I think Koala's done what, at least in his A games, he's done what Trotz said he could. Honestly, Fort's done a lot better than I thought after seeing him on the Jesters last season. Serve, yeah, that's where I really fell off. I was
yeah.
I was told I was gonna see a major caliber player play an A, and that's not what I'm seeing. Yeah, Smurf, that
That's
pickup. Smurf's not bad. I've played with him before, and he definitely doesn't play bad. So I think he's a decent A player, and I think the team is doing about how I'd expect with how their roster is.
Yeah, they're running a straight roster though, so that's why I don't think he's played too much yet. Obviously, they sort of came in knowing who they wanted to play. They played their MMR cap well, of course, only 10 cap space remaining, but yeah, so it's an interesting team. One to look out for. I'm not sure they'll advance very far in playoffs, but they could be a dark horse team, and I'm gonna wait to make that judgment until we do our episode right before playoffs, in which we give our I'm gonna have us build a bracket, and we're gonna go through. We're gonna say who's gonna win each game and by how much, but. So something to look out and look forward to for you guys viewing. I want to throw one up next because I've seen this in chat. Everybody's like, what about the dark horse team, the Eskimos, right? 4-6, negative 15 goal differential, only 3 cap space. They have recently traded. Now Maple is, well, I don't know if they traded. Maple is on this team. I think Maple's been on this team or been on a team. Only 1 game played though, 0 assists per game. and 0.33 goals per game. So those are some serve numbers. And then 1.0 saves per game. Of course, it is just one series played, and who knows how many games of that series were played. On the other end, though, Q-Clo 4 and Epic Eagle, they've I don't really know where to rate this team, right? Whether they're exceeding or disappointing. I would say a little disappointing in terms of 4-6 rate. It's not a winning record, so it's hard to say they exceeded expectations unless you knew the roster was built poorly. I think that you would have thought going into the season they had more potential, but I know there was a lot of drama and some. I think this roster changed once, or actually, I'm not sure that changed too much. I know 4 at one point was maybe going to go somewhere else. It's rough. And I don't think, looking at these guys, they are fourth in the Elements division. They're not out of it, but you would almost have to win out. And I mean, that includes winning games against like the Tempest and your close rivals, the Genesis and the Embers. So, I'm not sure they have what it takes to make playoffs. And that's why I would say they're a little bit of a disappointing team.
Yeah. I mean, this team fell apart after they lost CXL. So,
True.
yeah, there was that whole situation of just having to rebuild the roster. A bunch of people left. I know a bunch of situations happened. Now the roster ended up with, I honestly have no clue who Quakelo is. I don't think he was in A last season, so definitely don't know too much about him. I know 4 is a really good player. He was on the Eskimos last season with Richard and Cran, and I know he definitely did a lot with them. Eagle is a player who's been in A for a really long time, and he's always been consistent with how he performs. He's not bad, and he's never really been the best of A, so he's just kind of in the middle, and he does help his team a lot. And I mean, Maple's just a player I wouldn't have expected to start, so that's really I see this team how it is, and I think they have potential to do a little better, but I think they're about to where their cap is.
Yeah, I always struggle too, though, when you get a player, when you say like, oh, he's been in MAV or he's been in A or he's been in AA for a very long time. When you don't progress over a very long time, you can tell you reached a plateau, at least in your current skill. And that always concerns me bringing that kind of person onto a team because in my opinion, the best teams are ones that they can even start off rough, but they evolve and they get better as players and as individuals and as teammates over a season. And that's how that kind of team becomes a championship team. Whereas if you sign a player like that, you're mostly signing them, in my opinion, up until major, right? And then major, you can't rank out. So whatever. You're signing them to be a captain because they know how things are run. But I'm not sure that you would say this is going to be my like quality signing. But I did want to say too that their assist stats hurt my soul, and I think that's part of their problem. Like you got to pass it. Either you've got to pass it, or they are passing and they're not showing up. We saw some of this on stream actually, where they're passing but not showing up as second man to finish the pass, and so it doesn't count as an assist stat. And that's got to change. Even at A, that's got to change. I think. Like A, we saw even in Maverick, right? The other with the Tides Pandas matchup, passes were helpful, right? And passes are always going to be helpful in the game of Rocket League, and so they got to figure that out. But Claude, what do you think of this team?
Um, sorry, I had some stuff going on, so I wasn't paying attention to like the first half of it, but I agree with you. Um, they got to start figuring out how to pass the ball. It's a fundamental thing, and in A, it's going to start making a difference when you're developing as a player, trying to get up into higher, not only in rank but in leagues. If you don't start passing the ball and connecting on those passes, you're not going to be a competitive team going forward.
Mm-hmm. So I think quality assessment, a little bit disappointed in the Eskimos, particularly for what we thought. They had some of the raw talent at the top end. So, and the veteran experience in Epic Eagle. They're not, like I said, out of it yet. So they could turn around our expectations, but it's going to be a hard road and you can't afford to drop any more games. Excuse me. All right. Let's go. Let's start speeding through this so we can move up to AA. Stallions, and I'll just start throwing these out there. Stallions 7-3. Doing pretty well. They have struggled though when anyone subs anyone down against them because they can't play up. They can only play to A, which is a concern for me. You have only a +6 goal differential as well, so they don't shoot well even in their wins. You would expect 7-3 to have somewhere along a +20 or above. The roster looks good, right? I mean, you pick up Sands and you've got Sky High Nitro, who we praised heavily. King Muff. You've got everybody's favorite Troll Chase on, right? They're doing well, but I think Sky High Nitro has not performed maybe to the quality that we thought he might. Right at a 0.47 goals per game. He's got a lot of assists, right? 0.75, so he definitely passes and maybe gets some stuff stolen. But overall, I think he's got to boost that goals per game on his own for this to be a better team. And like I said, I'm this is not as pleasantly surprised because we thought they would be good and they are good, so they're not a disappointment. But I will say that if you play like this and you can't score a ton, I'm concerned about their playoff chances, particularly when you can't play up against any sub downs. And I think that, a lot of teams complain, well, this team sub down against us and that team sub down against us for whatever reason and sub down. That's the only reason you won. Well, my thing has always been that if you're going to be one of the top teams in whatever league you're in, you should be able to beat one player of the next league because you're most likely going to be in that league next season. So yeah, that's a concern for me going into playoffs, though they're positioning themselves well, obviously, for playoffs, though, with those leopards on their back, they can't afford to drop anything either.
I agree. They're a solid team, but they're not a dominant team. If they want to compete for the championship, they got to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, really the only team. I mean, I think they have chances to lose and fall off, but their only two really big competitors right now are the Tempest and the Cardinals. So I think they just got to keep doing what they're doing and winning the games, and then just see how playoffs go from there.
Yeah. I see you, Chaotic. Major players don't need to beat RLCS. It's not major to RLCS, though there are some that have and some that can, but it would be beat like rank A players, which happens between some of our major players on the top end quite often. So I stand by that. All right, let's keep going. We'll speed this up. I know we were kind of fast on this and we've got a lot more to go through. So uh overall, first of all, I want to ask you though, your thoughts on playoffs for Stallions. Are they first rounded? I almost want to say yes. They feel like a first rounded team.
Why? It's possible.
Well, who would they play, right? It'd be somebody from their same division, if I remember correctly, or they play the fourth. If they, let's say they took number one, which you have to beat the Cardinals for, but you take number one, you'd play the fourth rank, which would probably end up being the Rattlers in the current moment, or the Pelicans, whoever beats them out there. I could see them losing. See it. What do you think,
Yeah.
Klopp?
I think in playoffs anything can happen.
Mm.
So you just got to make it to playoffs. I agree that seeding is always nice, but if you make playoffs, anything can happen. You just got to get across that line.
Mm. Okay, well, let's so go down to the Cardinals. As I said, 7-3 as well. Pleasantly surprised by this team. They're doing really well. I thought they'd be more of a mid-tier team, but they're definitely a high tier. Plus 23 goal differential, so more in line of what we would think with a 7-3 team. Looking really good. They vary their roster quite a bit on terms of who plays. Their goals per game is looking pretty good. Assists per game is up there. Saves per game as well. The only thing that concerns me about this team is it does look like they get a lot of saves, so they probably get shot on a lot and beat on transition plays. That's not in and of itself a problem as long as you're really good at defense. Sometimes that might not work, and unfortunately, if you have one bad game at playoffs, there is no losers bracket, though I wish there was, and still have advocated for that. Like a more bigger tournament, losers bracket, the whole nine. But yeah, so what do you guys think of this team? Pleasantly surprised. We'll just kind of speed this one up, so we won't talk about it as long. What do you think?
I mean, three of their players have only played. They haven't played like uh, they've only played about half the series, but um, it looks like they're a team of shooters, and they're plus 23. So if they're getting burned on a counter here and there, I'm not that concerned about it, because they have two people averaging over a goal per game and one at 0.95. So they score the ball a lot. So if they get caught on transition, I'm not that worried about it.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I view it the same way. I mean, if you get caught out on a transition play like once every 4 goals, it's, I mean, you're obviously still winning 3-3 up by 3. So
Okay. Well, we'll move to the next one. I actually think it's a really strong playoff contender team too. Talking about let's just Pelicans and Ravens. We'll group them together here. Pelicans 5-5, close to the Rattlers. Some stuff they've got to work out. Pleasantly surprised by where they're at. Though they're just really mid, right? So maybe not pleasantly surprised. About what I expected. Mid-tier team. looking really well, but their stats don't bode well for that matchup against the Rattlers on an individual basis. I think the Rattlers probably end up winning that, although you pick up Tuxedo Marks. How does he fit into this Rattlers roster? That'll be the question. Of course, the Rattlers are -13 in goal differential, so that does lead in the way of the Pelicans. But overall, as a stat point, even if the Pelicans end up beating out the Rattlers, I think they're going to have a very rough playoff run. It's not a team that I'm expecting a ton from. They could come out and surprise us, but I wouldn't classify them as like a dark horse team or a playoff winning team at the current moment.
I'll go. I think Pelicans, you have to win your divisional games if you're to stand a chance. You just have to. You can't drop anymore. So, if you guys can do that, you have a shot. But it looks like you guys don't have like a consistent third right now either. You guys have a lot of different series played. So I don't know if that's part of the issue too, not having a consistent roster and trying to just get players out on the field to play your series. So if you guys can figure that out, I think you have a chance.
And then what I remember, I think the dude they traded, or no, for Tuxedo Marks, they got rid of Feizu. And I mean, Feizu was really like that captain of the team, so I don't know how that's really gonna change. I haven't really talked to any of the players since that. Um, so I think the Pelicans really are gonna have the advantage over the Rattlers in that case. And I think it's sort of what Klopp said though. They're gonna have to just keep winning those divisional games and see where it goes from there.
Klopp, I'm about to deny that trade that I'm looking at right now. That is a high daylight robbery. What just happened? How did you just bamboozle Nuss that bad? What was that?
There's no bamboozling.
Absolutely
Zero bamboozling.
bamboozled.
Zero.
That is incredible. You lucky soul, you. Okay. Ravens though 2-8. Disappointment. Very not good. The -17 goal differential, right, for 2-8 is not terrible. Part of your problem is the 0.29 goals per game you're getting at a good luck XR. Although he doesn't look like he plays a ton. He's played 5 series. Their stats look okay. I mean, across the board, they just can't figure out how to win. And what do you think is this team's problem? They're obviously probably not going to make playoffs at all. But what do you guys think has been their issue throughout the season? Because again, their stats, right? They look pretty decent. And -17 goal differential you've had from some teams like the Rattlers are close to that at 5-5. So what's been their issue?
It's really hard to say unless you like really pay attention to A, which I don't, because their stats don't look terrible. It looks like they saved the ball a decent amount. It looks like they're scoring an okay amount of goals. So either they're getting just absolutely hammered in a couple of series, and then they're losing really close games and can't find it like ways to win. That's what my personal opinion would be. But if that's the case, it's unfortunate because sometimes you have off nights, you get blown out. But if you can't find a way to win, no matter how good or bad you're playing, you're not going to make playoffs. So it's too bad.
Yeah, it's rough. LSM, what do you think of this team?
I know from what I've seen, Lion and Molly should be good. Should be good A players. Like their stats, they're kind of in the middle. They're definitely not on the bad side, and I don't know if they're considered the top of A right now, but I know they subbed up against us on the Falcons, and there was a few games they did good. I'm not gonna talk about the 2 games where the score was like 8-2, but they're definitely good players. And Zach, his stats goals wise look great. Now for good luck, I don't know if this is still is the case, but I know at the beginning of the season he was honestly playing more AAA games than he was even A games. So yeah, I don't know if that could be a case where he went and played a AAA game, they lost, or they just didn't do how he was. He comes and he plays with the A team, and he's like all bummed out, so he's not even like really playing well. So
Well, those stats do not encourage me for him to play at a AAA level. I'm just going to put it out there. At all, at all. But either way, okay. So let's go through really quickly. Genesis 5-5, mid tier opportunity to catch up to the Embers, but also opportunity to lose the Eskimos. they can't really afford to lose any either. They really need to try to win out if possible. 5-5, -8 goal differential. So again, we're seeing not a great goal differential from this team. Their stats aren't great in terms of goals per game, and that's probably why they struggle. Apparently, the wins they get are close wins. Their assists per game, though, they look pretty okay. Saves per game being the big one, and that again tells me they get shot on a lot. So a team that has the possibility to make playoffs, so they really need to try to overtake the Embers. But in my opinion, the Embers have a much better shot.
I'm not sold on this Genesis team, so
Yeah.
I think the Embers are going to edge them out.
What do you think, Sam?
I think it depends on the long run because I know computer is decent. I know Spadel can do better than what his stats show. He's definitely done good on the passing, but his goals per game isn't what I remember it to be last season. And I think if he steps up in that one regard, I think they definitely will become the better team of the Embers because this Genesis roster looks more rounded than the Embers.
Okay. So going down, Jesters and Titans again, really quick. Jesters obviously second in the division, 5-5. Dangerous team, looking okay. I mean, you've fared very well in a very weak division overall. Looking to be on track, right, to take this, but you're 5-5 with a 0 goal differential. So you either win or you don't. They're close every game. Their stats not looking so hot. Like they don't look like a very dark horse team in playoffs. And I wouldn't expect them to go very far. Their saves by far again the biggest because it seems like they keep every game close. They need to figure out something on the goals per game if they want to go very far in playoffs, in my opinion. Titans on the other end, you are 3-7, -9 goal differential. Now they did beat, I think, Wranglers, but then you lose Josh for toxicity. He gets banned. Uh, this team stats again, not credible, though they are better though than I would say than the Jesters overall. So there is still some room to maneuver here to try to catch the Jesters, who obviously are not going to have the easiest season. But you'll have to win out if you're the Titans. I'm not sure they can do that. They haven't really proven to me that they don't know how to do that. And also, I think it's going to really depend on who they sign as their fourth man. Those are my two thoughts on the teams. I think the Jesters are more likely to make playoffs, though I think they get knocked out early. What do you guys think of the two teams?
I think Jesters might be able to make it. If they do, then they're probably going to get knocked out early. I kind of agree with you on everything that you said, honestly.
Well, Sam, what
I,
do you think?
I think if the Jesters make it, first of all, we need to have like a celebration stream where it's the biggest, like the best production we've ever done just for putting Danger on stream. Now, after that, I think the Jesters have a better chance than we're giving them. They're tied with Genesis, and right now, if we were to go into playoffs, Genesis would make it because Genesis 3-2 the Jesters. Um, Looking at this schedule though, the Jesters, they get the privilege of playing the Titans twice. As I said, the Titans right now is like keeping up with the Kardashians. There's a lot going on there. There was apparently a player holding replays hostage for a series. I don't think this team's gonna bounce back. They get to play them twice. They get to play the Miners again, and last time the Miners FF to the Jesters. They get to play the Goals. Like they have a few
On
hard teams.
stream. I'm so happy I got that on stream though. B-Dong versus Danger Best Admin Showdown, the 25th, 8 p.m. You don't want to miss it.
That's actually gonna be really cool. But after that, yeah, you have like the Tempest are they have to play the Tempest and the Cardinals, two really good teams. But other than that, I mean, they have free wins coming up. I wouldn't say free. There is a chance they could go south, but they do have more of an easier games, and especially with playing like the Titans twice and the Miners again.
Okay. Uh yeah, it's gonna be an interesting route for them. And the Titans probably aren't gonna be it. So as that covers A, finally, I know we took a long time and we'll keep doing that. But I gotta ask you before we leave, who wins playoffs and who gets I guess who wins playoffs and who is your dark horse team that could potentially win playoffs in the current moment? Klopp, start with you, go.
I think Wranglers are just too far ahead of everybody right now. So I think they're my pick at the moment, but I'm going to pick my Leopards as the dark horse.
Okay.
I
And
think
Allison?
Tempest are winning it all. I believe. Wranglers, it might come down to a good matchup between Tempest and Wranglers, but if there's anyone I think are gonna take it from Tempest, it's probably either gonna be the Stallions or maybe the Leopards.
Okay. For me, here we go. Okay, so Wranglers win it. It's my. Sorry, I should rename this. Safe pick and then your dark horse is what we did. But Leopards are my dark horse. I truly think that Max has got what it takes to lead these boys to victory, and I don't mean necessarily on the field, but in terms of hype. So I think they've got what it
Yeah.
takes. They're my dark horse.
I
You
hope
got
Max is watching. I really do.
on the island somewhere. He's like, I'm gonna roll back to civilization just to correct you. I see that we do have a question from Chase on, and as I said, guys, if you have a question or something you want us to talk about, just put it in the chat. But he's like, he wants to do start bench cut. I know we said we'd do that eventually, but he wants to do it specifically with I Trash, Kitsune, and timed in. Start timed in, cut Kitsune, bench trash for me. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna flip around trash and timed. I start trash. I bench timed because he's washed, and I cut Kitsune because I don't know Kitsune well enough. He's a good player, but
LSM, you round us out. What do you think?
I think I would definitely start Trash, cut Kitsune, then bench timed.
Timed is upset at you boys. I'm the only one that started him. See, Time, that's why. You just can't. Don't trust that Panthers org, okay? They never value you appropriately. It's Klopp's fault.
it is my
Okay.
fault.
Moving to Double A, though, to get this show on the road. There's only a few teams that I wanted to do really highlight, and then we'll start to group them through here. Mustangs, 8-2. We'll start with them. And to make this faster, I'll just keep throwing people on the block here. They are not surprising that they're good. Obviously, we had thought they'd be good in the start. 8-2, you know, I Trash, Stick, Zap, Climax. You guys have talked about individually. They have like two of the best players in Double A. I will say though, plus 41 goal differential, they are looking spicy. They will be the big team to beat going into playoffs, other than Vultures. But I had said Vultures are number one, and I do think that the fact that they are not above the Vultures is a bit surprising. But I had said Vultures probably number one in Double A, at least by record. That I'm currently winning that argument. Still opportunity for the Jaguars to catch them. The on-stream match was of course big for that. What do you guys think of this team?
I think Mustangs are solid. They're a very very solid team, but they are beatable. I think everybody in Double A is beatable at one point or another. But I think right now it's Vultures, Mustangs, and there's a little bit of a gap, and it's pretty much everybody else.
Okay, Elson.
Yeah, I think the Mustangs are solid for sure, but I think they're beatable. When we played them, we took the first game off them, and then for 3 games straight, I don't like the term peaked because I feel like you're saying, hey, this is the best you'll ever do. Trash peaked on us for 3 games in a row. Like, they're beatable, and I think if it wasn't for the fact Trash played his best game ever, then that would have been closer. So, and obviously the Vultures took a game off of them on stream.
Well, he is their best player, right? 1.31 goals per game, 1.33 saves per game. He's out there. Okay. So next team that we could talk about here is gonna probably be the Vultures, as we said, 9-1, best team in Double A, looking spicy, plus 44 goal differential across the board. They're looking good. You do have Kitsune on this team. He's played every series, and now he looks pretty good. I think the reason we all said cut him was because we don't know him, or I don't know him. I know Klopp, you said you didn't. I'm not sure, Allison, if you know him. Cran, he's got okay stats, but I don't play him for this team if I want to win. They look pretty good. They look pretty solid, and they're going to be my like best playoff contender.
I think that if you can figure out Vulture's play style, you could beat them. But on top of that, F5, when he is on, he is so good. But when he's off, they are a very beatable team. But right now they do sit atop of Double A. They're a very very solid team, and they're probably my favorites to win. And I said this in preseason that the Vultures might be good this season and not going to go 4-12. I called this at the very beginning of the season.
I said they were going to be good too. I think LSM was our doubter. And LSM, what do you think of this team?
Okay, I was doubting because of the roster at the time. This isn't anywhere close to what the roster was at that time. But yeah, I mean, Richard, obviously he was good last season on the Eskimos. They went like 16-2. Kitsune, I don't know enough about him, but stats look good. And then Botsy, he's a good player, but I know he's also a younger player. And my one issue with younger players is they tend to be the ones who have like the mental breaks, where if you go up like 2-0 on them, there's no chance they're coming back just because they start to lose it. So I think this team's definitely really, really good. And I know it's definitely going to be harder to come close, but like it's like for now, I'd say they're probably the best, but if you get up on them, you could do it.
You just reminded me of the news that came out about the Pioneers, the esport team for Rocket League, that signed that 13-year-old to a multi-year contract. He can't even play till he's 15, first of all. That's a dumb idea, second of all. Why do you sign a 13-year-old to an esports team? Like, are you kidding me? Like, in my opinion, it should be like 15 at the least, 16 at the most. Or not the most, but like 15, 16 and up. 13? No, 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 no. I don't get it. Either way, yeah. So moving on, I think we should talk about Jaguars and Barracuda together. Obviously, we saw them on stream. Um, it was a really good matchup. It was one basically that I said the Barracuda needed to win if they wanted to have any shot at taking that Jaguars playoff spot away. I think now Jaguars probably take it, and the Barracuda are probably eliminated from playoffs, although they need to try to win out to let that happen. And if the Jaguars have a catastrophic failure, which now that Klopp has said Timeden is not his boy, and now Timeden's going to have to go to the trade block or something, could be the case. But yeah, Jaguars pleasantly surprised. I had predicted they'd win. They did win. They looked like a better team overall. It was a close contender, but they look like a better team. There are some stuff they need to work out though before they become to me like a really good playoff team. Whiffs being one of the big ones that I noticed on that stream game, although it was a very unclean game from both teams. On the other end, Barracuda 4-6, -18, as I said, probably eliminated from playoff contention. And Klopp pulls the whoopsie doopsie trade here and gets true Sunny D from this Barracuda team and gives them Prison Mike. Now, Prison Mike, no offense to him, but that is an incredible trade. That's a yikes of a trade. I think you cripple the Barracuda on that one. And yeah, I don't think they can overtake the Jaguars anymore. And I think that they're a good team. They had a lot of hopes. They got slotted into a terribly difficult division.
I agree. And so I'm gonna explain. I explained this to Allison before stream, and I was gonna explain it to you too. But timed has so we've all been kind of in a slump, but timed just realized how bad his controller has gotten. He had like 20% error on his stick drift.
Don't use a
So
controller. I have no
he,
sympathy for you
he's
peasants that use a
so
controller.
I'm not making excuses. I'm just explaining. So he's been playing on a really bad controller. I have been slumping really bad, but I think we're gonna bounce back and we're gonna make a good run at it here.
Car. And what about the Barracuda? Just you quick thoughts on
Barracuda,
Barracuda.
they're my boys. I love everybody on there. So it was a rough night for both teams. Left played pretty well. He's a really good player, and I miss playing with him, but I just wanted to play with other players. So and Dragon's my boy. I appreciate him own goaling, but I know how hard that is too. So being on the receiving end of that, so feels bad, but GG's to them.
LSM.
The Jaguars, I remember when we played them in Cracked, it was always really close games. Um, Barracuda side, they beat us, but they played Sunny, Carp, and Left Stick, and
Mm.
Left Stick is I kind of underestimated how Left Stick was, and he played better than I thought. So really, both these teams have chances. Do I think the Barracuda are going to overtake the teams that are currently going to get into playoffs? No. Do I think they'll definitely do good the rest of the season and keep it close? Yes.
Yeah, I had to cover my camera because my father, I'm still at home at the moment, and my father has threatened many times to walk in here without clothes on. And knowing my father, he would do it, and that's nothing I want to subject you people to. So yeah, it's again, like I said, rough for the Barracuda, looking really good for the Jaguars. They could be a dark horse team. My problem is they need to pick some things up. Well, let's go down to the Wild Division, right? Their closest rivals, and I want to talk about Pythons, Falcons, and Herons all together here. To start us off, though, Pythons, right? 7-3, looking really good. Pretty much have locked up another wild card. Right now, the second wild card slot, obviously, as they are one game up over the Jaguars. Looking good. I had my doubts on you, LSM. I had my doubts on this team, not because of you particularly, but because I wasn't sure of sort of your third, fourth man situation, of course, with Reflex and then that kind of stuff. Mouse coming through. But you guys have done really well. And I think you guys are a really good roster. Of course, 7-3 plus 10 goal differential. You guys have got to figure some things out on the offensive end. And your defensive stats are really good, but again, you're a team that I would say needs to figure out your goals per game if you really want to have a good shot at playoff like finals and winning. The assists are looking really good though, and I like your assists across this team stat. You do bring in Eth. And so I will ask you, is he a starter for you guys now, or is it still going to be you and Mouse and Reflex?
So, the last few weeks was supposed to be a starter. I think, if I remember, we played like Thursday. It was me, and Reflex, which generally the lineup should be or myself, Mouse, and Eth. But it's an outchangeable roster, and that's why we like it so much, because basically anyone can fill in for anyone. Um, we won a series out, me, Eth, and Reflex, and Mouse, according to most of the community, is supposed to be our best player. So really, I think it's just whatever we pull out, we can do.
I like this team a lot, and I was very, very skeptical after the roster changes, but I understand why they were made. I think that they're going to be a very good team come playoffs, and Jaguars going to play Pythons on stream Friday next week, so that'll be a good stream match too.
Yeah. It should be a really good one. Really quick, LSM side note, who is the orientation team manager?
Right
You're on orientation.
now, it's supposed to be Malum. People know Malum, so it's not gonna work out. So it's really ran by me and Bidong, sort of. Danger helps out sometimes, and it's really just right now. It's basically like 4 people managing one team.
All right, great. You can respond to Chromotome in RLPC discussion because I can't answer that. I'm not orientation team. Okay, so yeah, like going down the list though to the other two, I want to go through quickly here because I know we've started to run into the time errors that I thought we might. Falcons 4-6, big disappointing every time I put them on stream in terms of what I thought this team could do and then what they've performed. You have Killer, Bench, and Skirky. They have lost a player. Skirky has 0 series played. I'm not sure who they're fielding anymore, right? You only have 3 people on this roster, and only 2 of them have played for this roster. You're 4-6, not at a -4 goal differential. You weren't out of the running. You were actually very close. The problem is, of course, you have to catch up to the Pythons, who are 3 games above. So when I say you're not out of the running, all I meant was you're basically trying to beat out the second best in Granite Conference. That's going to be really hard with their division. So they might all but be eliminated. They're not quite yet, though. And I got to ask, what do you guys think of this team? Or whatever's left of this team.
I just want to know why Skirky's not playing. I haven't talked to Skirky himself, but I think if Skirky plays, they're competitive. But if you're using sub-ups just constantly, I don't think that's going to be a cohesive team that can really muster anything together.
What do you think, Elsa?
Skirky's not playing because, first of all, I still don't think he has a PC. Um, Hold up. Dead?
Did just die?
Dead?
No, I'm alive. I had to turn my camera off for a second.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But all in all, no.
CF, my nose is just having a field day.
No, I don't think he has his PC. But after all, I mean, Killer and Bench are 2 really good players. I mean, Killer's stats show it, and then Bench he could do more. But yeah, I think because of them just not having a consistent third, it's like it is what it is. They're doing what they can.
Yeah, I think Skirky's gotten actually more lucky than I have, but he wanted a different GPU port, so he does have it built now, so maybe he'll get to play for this team. Do you guys think he changes his team? Like he gives them the shot to make playoffs somehow over
I think
Jaguars or Pythons?
I think right now it's just a little
Too late.
too little too late. That's all that it is.
Too
It's
late to
unfortunate.
apologize.
It's unfortunate at the timing, but it's how it is sometimes.
Mhm. All right. Heron's big disappointment to me. 3-7, -24 goal differential. I thought Irony would make this team a lot better than it is. He has done well, but the team has not. I mean, a plus or a 0.25 goals per game off 2 series for Tibbles. This roster doesn't look good. It's definitely not going to make playoffs. Even it's in a week. It's not in. It's a really difficult division and a difficult conference, so it's unfortunate for them. Not going to make playoffs, in my opinion, though. Not a decent team. They have floundered. I'm not quite sure why. They just haven't been able to click together.
I think Irony is good, but he can't do it by himself. He's a very offensive-minded player, so he needs somebody to facilitate the ball or somebody that he can facilitate the ball to shoot. And I just don't feel like he has that right now. Nobody's above a 0.7 goals per game. The one person that is only has 5 series plays, which is Cranked. So I just don't think he has the right people surrounding him to make him flourish.
Okay. LSM?
Just to make sure I'm right, we're on the Herons now, right?
Yep.
I played this team the other day. Irony is really good, but the way this team works, or at least the roster we played, Irony, Crazy, Steve, and Crank, their biggest problem is that their play styles don't mesh. Irony, especially from playing when he was on the Warriors, he likes to cherry pick passes all day, and he's really good at it. A lot of the time, they'll catch you on plays because of that. But Crazy Steve and Cranked aren't the kind of players who just bang it up to him like that. They Cranked especially went for a lot of solo plays, and Crazy Steve just he did his own thing half the time, and there just was not a team here. It's a bunch of 3 solo players who, except for Irony, they just do what they want and try and hope and it works.
Okay. Moving on, we'll just go to the Brawler Division here. Dukes, you're right. You're 7-3. You have done actually a lot better than I thought you would during preseason. I'm gonna be honest. They only have a +4 goal differential, so there's still some things they got to figure out. They only have 3 men on the roster, so there's really some things they got to figure out. Of course, you do have the legend Catman, the demo expert himself. That's okay across the board. Where you're really looking at is Beef is just chilling. Now, I don't know who that is. That's a different name. Interesting name for sure. And then Levy Lev. It's they gotta find a 4th, obviously, and they can find a pretty decently priced 4th. But doing okay. I just don't know about this team's longevity for playoffs.
I'm not convinced by this team. I think I have to look at their strength of schedule, but I think if they come up against a top tier team, it's just not gonna bode well for them.
What do you think, Elson Dukes?
I don't know because I don't want to put it this way, but it's how it is. We played them and they beat us in 5 or 4 maybe. I don't even remember. I just know that they're so hard to play against because when I see someone leave the ball just to chase down a demo and not looking at Catman, I don't know what to do anymore. Like it was hard and I did not like it. Like I think that if we play them again, that playstyle won't work on us and they'll be beat. And we're really the only team with like an amazing record that they've beat. So
Yeah, they do benefit though from an incredibly weak courts conference. So like I couldn't even tell you how far they go in playoffs because yikes, courts conference. But okay, so moving on, the Warriors, Voyagers. Warriors 6-4, Voyagers 4-6. So the little reverse there. Warriors, they are about what I expected them to be. I was concerned with their playoff performance or their preseason performance. Excuse me. They are 6-4, but a -5 goal differential. So they have got to figure out how to shoot the ball. And not get scored on. Their save stats are okay enough. I think that's maybe where they struggle a little more. Still looking like a decent roster. I think this is a team that could end up beating the Dukes for that playoff spot because the Dukes, I'm just again not convinced. Like you, Voyagers 4-6, 0 goal differential, so they do know how to save in. Sometimes shoot it. Their games are all close. Nobody has above a 1.0 goals per game. They also have a pretty decent roster once they figured it out. And I actually think this could be a dark horse team for me. The problem for them is they are currently not in playoffs. They have to basically beat out the Lightning, which is possible since the Lightning are only 5-5. But it's going to be rough for them. They got to win it out. What do you guys think of these two teams?
First Voyagers. So last season they were awful. It was Vex, I'm Daddy Though, and Lil Taco. And the previous season, those three played really well together. And then last season, it just completely fell apart. So a little bit of a rebuild, but still building around Vex and I'm Daddy Though, and they've improved. I don't think that JT is gonna be the guy that really meshes out that entire team and brings them to playoffs or through playoffs. Warriors about where I expected. Prisma's very good. Uh, Sosa's all right. Sins is all right. But they play really well together, so they're a good team too.
LSM.
It's so iffy because with the whole thing is the Voyagers, we played them, we 3-1 them. That was a long time ago. So they could have changed by now. They could be harder. We'll be playing them in the next few weeks, so we'll see. After that, I don't know. Like JT is such a more better player than what he's doing, and I wish he would like come up to what I know he can do. So this team, I want to do better. Then on the Warriors, you have Prisma and Sosa. They're two friends. They played last season on the Titans. Barely slipped in the playoff because they started doing amazing. And I really just want to see them do better because I like Prisma's play style. Sosa plays a little too aggressive for me, and then Sens is his goals per game are actually kind of amazing right now for him. So
Yeah. And Voyagers. So first of all, my question to you guys is: Warriors, do they beat Dukes if they meet in playoffs right now?
I think they do. But
What
then
do you
again,
think?
I haven't played the Dukes yet, so I can't say for certain.
LSM, what do you think?
okay, Klopp, I'll give you a secret to beating the Dukes real quick. Um, if there's a ball, right, and you're getting beat to it by, say, Catman, jump instantly. Like, not at the ball, just jump in the air. Because Catman's coming for you. And if you dodge him, he's overcommitting, and you have free goal. That's how we scored almost all our goals that series. Um, Beside that, I think the Warriors will beat them because the difference between, from what I see, is the Dukes favor against more of a a slower pace team because Catman's gonna chase them down, and that's what's gonna happen basically. And I think the Warriors will outpace them because of that. Like Prisma is gonna run for his life and somehow get a shot on net that the Dukes can't save. So
Well, we'll have to see, right? And yes, I know we spent over an hour on AI. I saw that LSM, but I'm trying to give each body their due. And although you might not be interested in AA, people are. So here we are. Talk about the Bandits to finish Brawler 2-8. Huge disappointment to me. I thought this team would be better. I had been promised big things by Cracked, and he ends up abandoning this team because he can't figure it out. I don't think they, 2-8, -27. They're done. They're not really going to make playoffs. They also really just are one of those teams, in my opinion, like the Miners, that are at this point, you just play for wins. You just play to boost your stats. You just play to play, right?
Play
And wait for the
spoiler.
next season. Yeah, play spoiler. What do you think of this?
I think you have to find an incentive to play the games and make it worth your time to come to games each day and give yourself a little bit of motivation. It doesn't matter what it is, but you got to find it.
Okay. Awesome. What do you think of this team?
I'm gonna be honest, what team are we on again?
The Bandits, 2-8, -27.
I when we played this team, uh, I don't know what to say about them honestly. This team's fallen apart. I didn't have any faith in them in the beginning, but I thought they would at least do better than this, and they're not. Like they're in the weaker conference, and they're still pretty much bottom of their conference. Like I wish they would do better because I know Slimy was decent on the or not Jaguars, Leopards last season. So
I see. Thank you, T-Man, for telling me I forgot to click the outcome. If you look in chat, if you have a stream pulled up, Clop there, I think you'll appreciate the name of the team that won this one here, because this was your game, and I had to make it a little special, you know. I completed that prediction there. Okay. So moving on, we have one division left to talk about. It will be the Elements division. Three-way tie for the top of this division. Not a great three-way tie, but a three-way tie nonetheless. Three teams at 5-5. You've got the Pulsars, the Lightning, and the Avalanche. Pulsars, obviously, they are, as I scroll down here, 5-5 plus 3 goal differential. They look okay. They just signed Sam the Lamb. He's only playing one series. And it is rough when you have a series played, even a game, and you have 0 goals per game, 0 assists per game, and a 2.0 saves per game. You didn't do much that series, unfortunately. So this is an average team. Moving on, you go down to which is still better than what I thought they'd be, but rough. Lightning, you're 5-5 with a -8 goal differential, so you're worse than the Pulsars at the moment. Only 3 players on this roster, and they're okay. Not much to say about them. You need to find a fourth. You also need to find a way to score. And the Avalanche will be the third in that three-way tie. 5-5, -1 goal differential. I believe they just lost. No, they just pick up Brent Anner, or they just trade him. I think they traded him. He only had 1 series played, 0 goals per game again, and a .33 assists per game with a 2 saves per game. So struggling there as well. This team's stats across the board struggle. Moss being the only one of this team that's even doing relatively well in goals per game. If I'm looking at the three-way tie, and I'm looking at the Pulsars to win that, but that's not a confident vote because there's nobody that three-way tie at the top to me that deserves to be a top-tier team right now. And I think that this is still an open division the way it looks right now. But the team that wins this one, absolutely, in my opinion, loses game 1 of playoffs right now in the current form of these teams.
So I'm gonna like jump ahead a little bit here. I know we're talking about the three-way tie, but I'm bringing Inferno into this because Trotz's team is 3 games back, and he's 2-8. They're still in
All the
contention.
part of the plan, according to Trotz.
It drives me bonkers that he's still even close to playoffs. As for the three-way tie, I mean, a lot of people know that Moss and my org had beef earlier, but I think that he's the one that can carry a team better than anybody else on the other rosters. So I have to give the edge to the Avalanche there.
Possibly. Elsem, what do you think?
Okay, I gotta agree. It's kind of crazy that one of the worst team, tied for worst team record-wise, still has a huge chance to make playoffs. Like it's honestly kind of dumb, and I don't know. I think it's impossible to pick. I think I want Pulsars to win just because I like the players on their causings are really good. Um, but this division's just so rough. Like your best goal differential team is 3. Like put anyone from the Granite Conference in this division, and I think they win it, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's not a conference I have a lot, or division, excuse me, that I have a lot of hope in for playoffs. The other part of that too is that this teams will of course have to separate when they do their like divisional matchups. But what does that mean, right? Like, what do they do against each other? Who beats up on who? I actually think you're right that Moss on the Avalanche could carry them above the others. Inferno could catch up. But Trotz has been talking a long time about how this team's on the verge of greatness and they haven't quite figured it out. So he's going to need to figure it out now and win out. And if they do, they possibly could take second in the division. Like, that's how close this is, or even first. I mean, that is just rough. So we're gonna have to see something's gonna have to happen with these teams. They're gonna have to figure something out moving forward. But that is an interesting tie that we do have. And that concludes double A. Before we get out of here again, give me your top team, the one, your safe bet, and then your dark horse team. Klopp, we'll start with you.
Safe pick, Vultures, as long as they stay consistent and people don't start countering their play style. Dark horse, I'm not gonna say Jaguars because I'm not gonna be biased. I'll go Pythons. It's not like a super dark horse pick, but I think
Yeah.
Pythons have a good chance.
Okay. What do you think, here, Sam?
Uh, Safe pick. Obviously, I'm gonna go with Mustangs. I think they lost to the Vultures because of an unfortunate lag spree. So that's what I've been told, and I think it was true because I know the Mustangs could play better than what I saw. Dark Horse, honestly, I'm gonna go with the Pulsars. I think that they win the Element Division. I think that they win their side of the bracket. And I think whoever they play against needs to watch out because Causing is a really good player, and I think he can do a lot better than what their record's showing.
All right, ready for this? Here we go. So my guaranteed team, Vultures, because I think they just had looked better than Mustangs, whether the lag was there or not. I think you have to learn to play through that because what if it strikes during play? So I'm gonna go Vultures because I've been high on them all the time. My dark horse pick is the Warriors, and here's why. I think you skate through those conference finals all the way through playoffs, all the way to finals. I think you just skate through if you're the Warriors. And then you play the best of Granite, which will probably be Vultures or Mustangs. It could be a dark horse team from that side, but it'll probably be one of those. And it it's not likely, but it's possible. So either way, I would win if the Vultures end up doing what I think they would do. But I think the Warriors could be a dark horse team by virtue of the fact that their finals should be so easy. It'll actually be kind of incredible. So that's where I'm going with that one. You can let us know if you guys disagree in the comments. All right, here we go. This is the bread and butter. These are the two that everybody wanted us to go through. AAA and Major. So we'll start again AAA here, and I know we're gonna make this a very long episode, so we're gonna have to try to go even a little faster. But all right, let's start off. Geese 8-2. This is a good team. Obviously, they made the roster moves necessary. They got rid of Justin. He didn't work with the team. They look like a really good team. You did just pick up P Shooter. I think for this team to stay good, they don't play him. And I think they win out in their division. And I think to me, they are the strongest single contender from the Challenger Conference for finals. Now, I have a lot of hope for the Bulldogs. And I've worked with these guys. I agree that I think the Bobcats are a little overdone, but we'll get to that. I think the Geese strongest component. They're really good roster. They're figuring stuff out. 8-2 plus 29. But I think you make sure to keep P on the bench. What do you guys think?
I think you keep P on the bench simply because your roster is already
Hmm.
pretty
Yeah,
formulated.
exactly.
Just the only reason you'd need him if somebody can't make it. Um, Bulldogs I think are good too. We can talk about Bobcats if you want to talk about more specifically about them. I
Yeah.
think they're better than you're giving them credit for.
All right, we'll get to them. I was mostly giving a comparison here for the Geese.
No,
What do
I
you think of
got
the
you.
Geese, LSM?
Um, I'm surprised really. I think after their second normal series game, the one that I predicted and said the Knights would win, and no one believed me. I think after they lost that against the Knights, we were all like, "Oh, they might not be as good as we thought," and then they really turned it around. The only team they've lost to since then being the Trojans, which is I'm pretty sure we all agree the best team in AAA right now. So
Hmm. Well, I
really,
want to go. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say I think they've done a lot better than we thought with this 8-2 record, or at least
Yeah.
I thought.
Better than the beginning of the season, but they did trade, right? And they got rid of what to me was the uncertain factor and the one I had predicted needed to go from this team, which was Justin. I think he's found a really good home in the Heat, and I think that's a decent team. Now we'll talk about that, but I want to go to the Trojans, as you mentioned, 9-1. They do trade P Shooter away. They end up going all the way around for the Sneck team man himself, and of course team man all the love. I just call you Sneck because that's what people were, and I think it's funny. I like them getting rid of P Shooter, not because of P Shooter skill or anything like that, because of the way it blew up in chat. Clearly, and I heard this too, that things were simmering in the background. I think the vibes never would have been the same. And it's better to make sure everybody's happy and get the roster where it needs to be now. And I think P Shooter's even happier being on the Geese now than let it simmer and then wait till playoffs and find out then that you just can't have the same level of vibe and you're blaming each other and you'll create like a dissonance that lasts forever. I do think though that roster will never play together again. But either way, I think this is a really good time to do that before trade deadline. You're right. I think they currently are still the best in AAA because you didn't get rid of the core pieces, in my opinion. But I am curious to see now who they bring in as their prominent third. I know we were talking probably Bozo, and how does that impact this team? I had said on stream they're out 9-1 with the plus 60 goal differential, but I had said on stream that the Cream and Mux looked really good when they were allowed to go on offense, and I think that's what you're going to have to start relying on for this team.
I agree. It's got to be Cream and Mux just being the 1-2 up front, and then having a third man be able to keep pressure and facilitate.
Also,
I think it's just gonna be what it is. They're gonna keep doing what they do, where Cream and Mux carry this roster, and they're gonna go through and they're gonna win it all. That's my thoughts on them.
all right. Well, I think they're a strong favorite. And so I'm going to start doing these in twos. So we will start. Let's do Bobcats and Bulldogs, right? It's a storied rivalry. At least it felt like that for me. Always these two orgs a little bit in contention. Bobcats, the better of the teams right now in terms of record, 7-3, leading the Predator division. They had a really hot early start. They have Malice, Paper, LC Spirit, and Z +7 goal differential. They really have got to figure out how to score. Their goals per game do not reflect a 7-3 team, and they won't buoy them going forward. They are, for many AAA players' perspective, the most overrated team in AAA, buoyed by the fact that their division for a long time very weak, feeling roster changes. Bulldogs on the other end, 5-5 on the up and up, but still not quite there. They have a -5 goal differential. They only have a roster of 3. Relying a lot on Zero right now to fill this roster out. They lose Nos. He goes none. He left the server actually, I think. But either way, so they got to find a fourth here. They're a good roster. They're again really hard carried right now by Zero. So if he leaves, they're pretty much done, in my opinion. Although they had been taking steps to get better, they've still got some stuff to figure out, particularly on the offensive end beyond Zero. So can I say that I think the Bulldogs will overtake the Bobcats right now? Not confidently. Like I would if I knew Zero was going to stay and perform at this level the whole season. But the problem is when you're relying on that one guy to be that huge difference maker, it concerns me if he doesn't perform or doesn't show out or decides he wants to leave. So they need to figure out a little bit more in terms of teamwork, maybe a little more coaching or something like that. They have a lot of cap space to sign somebody really good though, so they can do that and buoy themselves. Bobcats, do I agree that they're one of the most overrated teams? I think they're overrated to an extent, but not like most overrated. And I still think they have a really good shot at locking up the Predator division. At the very least, they're going to playoffs, in my opinion. Like, there's no shot this team doesn't. So they're two really good teams. But what are you guys' thoughts on these two?
Uh, so Bobcats had kind of a cluster this week. Um, Paper's gone, LC Spirit's gone, so it's been Z and Malice, and I've had to sub up. And on Thursday night, the entire AA roster actually had to sub up for game 1 against Thunder. We won game 1, and we ended up sweeping Thunder in that series. So I think Malice is very, very good. If you let him do his thing, and I think Z is just so well rounded, he's hard to play against. So I think they have a good shot if they can figure out how to score more consistently. Bulldogs, Zero is a really good player, but he shouldn't be the carry of that team.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, LSM? I know you're in a little bit
Uh,
of a war here with Entity because he doesn't understand, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it is what it is. No, beside that though, I think that what y'all are saying is very much so right. Um, just to make sure I was right, you're talking about the Bobcats and the Bulldogs.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, yes. The Bobcats are doing better than we predicted.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after they lost Cato, which
Big
I
sad.
remember we said was not gonna work and stuff and issues were gonna come from that, but it didn't. The Bulldogs definitely turned it around. I was expecting this team just to flat out die after their start, and they got Zero back, and they seem to be working with that, and it seems to be working well for them.
But does he stay? That's the question. Maybe. Uh, it's going to be interesting to see. And they still got a lot of work to do, right, to catch the Buckets because they're currently tied with the Dolphins, who are 5-5, -12. The Dolphins are a team that I was never very high on. I'm still not, unfortunately. They're like crawling in there. But my decision of them was determined when I saw two of them sub up into major, and it just really looked bad. And so I don't I would have more faith in the Bulldogs over the Dolphins with Zero at this point. But the Dolphins, to their credit, are having resurgence right now. They're finally figuring some stuff out. They, though, remind me of the Bobcats, and they have got to learn to score. They just don't have good goals per game stats, in my opinion, for a winning team. And, across the board, their other stats are great, right? Their assists are fine. Their saves per game are really good, but they got to figure out how to shoot it correctly. And so that's their big problem right now. If they can, they put up a really good fight with the Bulldogs, and those divisional matchups are going to be actually incredible to watch towards the end of the season, because they're going to matter so much once again for AAA, because to bring it into perspective, the Tigers, who are a team that was a huge disappointment for a long time than what we had thought, have actually started to crawl back into it. 4-6, they're not out. They're right there on the cusp of tying up for a three-way tie on second here. So they have got a lot of work to do, and they're going to have to win all their divisional matchups, but they're still not out of it either. Like I said, big disappointment from what we thought this team could do, but they're finally figuring some stuff out, and their stats actually lean to me to be the better team if they can figure it out all the way through.
Um, I said Thunder earlier. We actually played Dolphins on Thursday, so I can't remember if it was Edwin or Snip, but I think it was Edwin. Hasn't been playing much, a lot. Has a lot of other stuff going on, so had almost zero warm up. So I think Edwin, if he starts playing more, can really help this team out. And I think that Tigers could pull it back. They are doing better, but I don't know if Dolphins and Bulldogs really figure it out, if they'll be able to pull it off, because I don't see the Bobcats falling off too hard. But if Bulldogs make a resurgence, then that could be an issue.
Mm-hmm. What do you
But
think, also?
I don't
Okay,
see
go ahead,
Tigers
sir.
overtaking all those. Sorry.
I think they have the potential, but I think you're right. Like, they've squandered that potential. They've had the potential all season, and they just can't figure it out. Like, I don't know. It's going to be rough for everyone involved, basically. But Allison, what do you think of these two?
The Dolphins were really built off of Edwin. This roster with Edwin with them was supposed to be the best roster ever. I ran into the Dolphins roster without Edwin. Uh, and me, Mouse, and I believe it was Ether Reflex. Maybe no, it was Barricade. Me, Mouse, and Barricade beat him in ranked. Not saying that's everything. Maybe they were just playing for fun or something. But the Dolphins roster is without Edwin is kind of iffy. Now, I believe the other team you were talking about is the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This team is also iffy to me. I think this is just a team and an org that's kind of not doing the best this season. And I think I don't really know many of the players that personally. I think Chuan was supposed to be pretty good, and he's not doing what they need most of the time.
Yeah. I think, too, the problem, I got a lot of flack for saying that the Dolphins, I had no faith after the major game. They're like, well, this major, and they're subbing up, and it was game one, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, but my problem didn't stem from them getting beat. My problem stemmed from the amount of whiffs that we decided to see from Snip and Edwin, like over and over and over and over and over again, to the point I needed to stop saying it on stream because I started to feel like a broken record. And that was my concern. And yes, I see Nuss in chat. Well, this team's only lost one time with Snip and Edwin in there. That's great, but field Edwin. Like, you can say that all day long, but if you can't field him and you can't win, it doesn't matter. Like, so I get it. And like I said, I think this Dolphins team could be good. It could be scary. But I just think you're looking at more raw potential from the Bulldogs, even from the Tigers, at the current form. They need to figure out how to field their roster for these Dolphins, and then we can start talking about, well, maybe they take second, maybe they go to playoffs, whatever. And a lot of that is going to depend on how they perform during their divisional matchups, in my opinion. And right now, my faith is not very high still on this team. So we'll see going forward, and they also need to figure out how to score still. Okay. Going over to the Brawler Division, we talked about Trojans, Raiders and Knights. Raiders, they went from disappointment to on an upswing really, really quickly for me. But they did it in a way that it wasn't surprising, right? You had a roster that was never going to work. I said over and over again, in my opinion, Caramel plus Surge equals bad. Over and over, I had said that. People were like, well, no, they're good players. But it was the personality to me. So you get rid of both. You sign a new roster. You get Ritzy. He builds a team. You get Spiff, who, in my opinion, is one of the best players, underrated in AAA when I played with him. You win a bunch of games. They beat the Trojans, which was huge for them. Do I think they're going to get to a head-to-head position where that matters? No, I don't. I don't think they're going to catch the Trojans. But unless the Trojans fall apart after this trade debacle, but I doubt it. But I think you almost assuredly lock up number, or at least some form of wild card. They look really, really, really good, and I'm pleasantly surprised by this team. I think they will be a strong contender for playoffs because I think they could be a really good dark horse. On the other end, the Knights, 3-7. I had low expectations. Then they won that on-stream game, and we're like, look, see, everybody thought we'd just get blown out, and we're the best. I believe they had beaten Geese at the time, who of course still had Justin. And then they go 3-7, negative 31 goal differential, back to what I had thought. So this team not making playoffs, in my opinion, not looking good. Part of their problem is they don't know how to shoot it, according to their goals per game. Their saves are okay. They're really good, but their assists are on the low end as well. They just get no offense generated, I think, is their big issue. And I have like no expectations from this Knights team.
I'm pretty much along the same lines as you are. I think Spiff is really, really good. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Ritzy's good too. So I think the Raiders will make playoffs. They just got to be solid, especially in their divisional matchups. Knights, it's just not coming together. It's just not going to work out for this season, I don't think.
Yeah. Elsam, what do you think?
I,
Raiders
I
Knights.
was, yeah, I know. I was hoping the Knights did a lot better, just because obviously they beat the Geese, and I was like all excited about that because of the whole prediction thing we had going on. And then they're not doing it. And this is a roster that I hope did better. And then you have the Raiders. This is a roster that I'm not even calling a roster because it seems like there's a change every other day
It's like a
of some
pickup
sort.
team, like a pickup
Pretty
hockey team with
much,
Ritzy at the helm.
pretty much. But I think if they once they sit down and finally start settling it, they're gonna do better, and they're gonna be a team that makes playoffs. And I hope they do good in playoffs.
Yeah, I know the problem for them was like Poppy was really good with this team, but then he went on vacation. So you're running Spiff, Mikatuch, and Ritzy. But Mikatuch wasn't quite up to it. So then you get rid of him, you bring on Sense. Well, then Sense takes over King Spiff's spot because Big Poppy comes back, and Ritzy and Big Poppy are close. And so we're Sense and Big Poppy. And then King Spiff got a little, he was like, I should be starting, and I somewhat agree to that. And so they figure things out, and they're like all over the place with their roster. I had heard they were trying to trade King Spiff, and then they didn't. They were going to keep him. I don't know what's happening with that still, so I don't know if this is the final form. I actually like this as a final form of a roster, but I don't know what they should do in terms of starting players to figure this out. But again, they're on the upswing. They beat the Trojans. Like, they look good. And I think that they have a lot of potential as a team. You know, I've coached them once, and I'd like to do it again, but I think they look like a really good team. And I did sub down the one time for them versus Thunder, and so I got to experience firsthand how they play, and I think they've got a lot of potential as a team. There are a couple things that they would need to figure out, but I haven't seen them in this form. As you said, they swap all the time. So, yeah, it's like, you know, Knights. What can you do? Pioneers, though, this is where you get. We'll go ahead and talk about them.
Do we have to?
Possibly one of the worst teams in RLPC at the current moment. Don't at me, Pioneers. You didn't have JMac for a long time with his suspension. They only have 3 players. They're 0-10 with a negative 42 goal differential. 0.27 goals per game, a 0.14 assists per game. Those are for Lil Taco and IRSL respectively. This just ain't it. Best way I can put it. And I know there were rumors maybe they were going to trade away some more of their players. I don't know what this team was. It felt like they were abandoned, but it ain't pretty. It ain't bueno. Obviously not making playoffs. I just feel bad for the players because I feel like they were really thrown into a no-win situation here.
I agree. I'm friends with Taco, and Taco's now talking about taking a season off because he's had 2 really rough seasons in a row. He was on Voyagers last season, who were just terrible, and now he's on Pioneers, who just JMac doesn't look like he wants to do anything. Um, I personally don't know JMac, but so it's just my perspective. I I don't really know what to say about this team. It's just not working.
It's hard to say anything without being mean, and I don't want to be mean. It's
No,
just
I
like,
know.
my problem is that you have JMac on here, I think, in my opinion, right? Because he's your GM who's suspended for 4 games. You know, arguably should have had a harsher punishment. And even then, I think you come into it and you just don't care about this team.
And you still have 3 players on this roster, and you've had 3 players on it the whole season.
Yeah,
Never signed a fourth.
he abandoned it in a lot of ways. And I think this is criminal. His whole organization is struggling. And I think this is where you start to ask, should GMs be removed if they don't put in the necessary amount of effort to make something happen? here. What do you think, LSM?
I think in the 4 seasons I've been in this league, this is the first time I've seen a team this rough. There's been close, but this Pioneers team really has nothing going for them. I think it's impossible for them to even make playoffs at this point. So I think that's really all to say. There's nothing really nice you could say about them.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Moving up, you did have Yuki on this team. Somebody pointed out it doesn't make a
Yes.
difference. I also don't think it helps this
But
team
that
a
was
ton.
before Rays got signed, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they dropped Yuki and signed Rays.
Well, that makes sense. I know Yuki, and I know he wouldn't want to be on a team that basically felt like doomed to failure, like literally intended to fail. And so I don't blame him at all for that, trying to get out of that team. Okay, well, let's go up and talk about the Thunder and the Heat. And then we'll talk about Thunder Entropy last year. Well, we have some other teams, but Thunder and Heat, I want to talk about. All right. So Thunder 6-5. You had Team Man and you had the whole drama of he built this team, then he abandoned it. Now we got to be the best. And you put Surge on here and you get Coffee. But I actually think this team in this form is better than it ever was with Team Man and Nat. Like, I'm not saying that from a player perspective, like a talent perspective. I think from a synergy perspective, this is a good team. Now they are, rough. And I subbed down and it was sort of, I won't say free, but easier. The problem was that was literally the first time they had ever played together. So there's no fault to them for that, right? Like you're basically saying, yo, pickup team, go beat a major player, even if he's not any good, right? So like I think this team has done really well. They've exceeded my expectations, particularly when they reformed, and they're practicing and they look a lot better the more they play together. I actually think this team, they currently lead the Elements division, and in my opinion, they're going to have a close battle with the Heat, but I think they take one of the playoff spots, and they actually, to me, could be a dark horse team. They look good, and I have a lot of faith in these guys. I know they have good vibes. They seem like just a nice team, like a good team, like a good group of guys trying to figure it out. And I think they're doing pretty well with it. Heat, again, I like the Justin trade for these guys. He fits their personality. I've talked to the guys on the team and I've talked to their GM Trots. He completes this team. They have a lot of fun. It is working for them. Their results have turned around. They looked scary. They look good. I actually think because of the changes to Tundra or not to Tundra, excuse me, to Thunder and Heat, they knocked Tundra out of playoffs now because of this. We'll get your opinion on that in a minute, but I think this is a good team. Justin's allowed to do what he does best, which is just go for whatever he wants, and the team works well to adapt to that. They look strong. They look like a good playoff team to me for these two. So my opinion, they are exceeding my expectations, both of these teams.
I agree with you. I really like Thunder now. I played them Tuesday, and they just seem like they mesh really really well together. They're all in sync with each other, so I think that's a really solid roster. And then Heat, I think could be scary. Going down the stretch here, I think that they will edge out Tundra, but
Oh yeah,
it's still close. It's still close.
Thunder is 6-4. That's a Sheets issue. Whoops. I guess that's gonna get fixed because they haven't played 11 games. Yep, 6-4. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yep. I was done, so you're good.
Sam, what do you think?
The Heat, I think this is a good roster just because I think this is a kind of roster where Justin can act the way he wants and be the player he wants, and the people on this roster just aren't gonna care. So, like Short and Toby, like they don't care. They're the kind of people who just kind of laugh at it and is like, yeah, shut up. Now, Thunder, um, this roster I thought would do better. I mean, after T-Man left, they've definitely done what they can, and I think they have a shot at making playoffs and doing good, and we'll see how they go from there.
Somebody better tell Coffee his math is wrong, though. He said he has enough carry in his back for 10 more games, but the problem is that's just to get to playoffs. He needs a few more wins in that back pocket if he wants to go all the way. So might want to rethink that strategy there, Coffee. But yeah, so I have a lot of hope for these two teams. On the back end, the Tundra and the Entropy. Tundra, I thought they would be the best in this division. They're actually disappointing me a little bit, particularly with the performance without Mar. Even with Mar, I think 5-5 is not where I expected this team to be. I don't actually, like I said, I don't have hope for them anymore to beat Heat and Thunder at the current moment unless they figure something out or make a trade or something. Because especially, I mean, now you do get T-Man. So, well, no, you don't get T-Man. Sorry, you trade T-Man. And I think that was your biggest mistake. He, to me, he needed to start, and then I think he could have complemented Marwell and carried this team to be better than they were. Getting rid of him, to me, gets rid of most of your potential on this team. So I don't like it. We'll see what they can do. But I don't know that this wasn't a give up from Tundra. For the Entropy, I had a lot of hope for these guys in terms of when I played, against or with one night on the scrim, Sky and Blind Bandit. I was like, yo, this should be a pretty good team. I'm surprised by their record. The problem was Sky ends up, I think, on the trade block or whatever, or leaving this team. If you get rid of those pieces, in my opinion, yeah, they've been getting dubs here or there, but they need every dub they can get, obviously. They're not out of this by far because you're only separated by 2 games from the top of your division again. One of those interesting scenarios. But they're going to have to figure it out on the back end here. Now, I think they have the potential to do so. I don't have any like reservations about this roster necessarily. They're doing pretty well and they're turning things around. They just have to continue to do so. And then where that's going to be different for me is on the offense. They have got to figure out their offense, right? 4-6, but a negative 20 goal differential is no bueno. Figure out the offense, and I think this team has a much better shot at overtaking the Tundra. The problem will be, of course, now that Heat and Thunder have sort of solidified themselves, that's where you're going to struggle. So I think there's still hope for this team, but they're going to have to figure out the offense.
You said exactly what I was going to say, so I'm good with that too.
LSM?
Great. You're gonna hate me. What teams
Okay.
are we talking about?
Tundra and Entropy.
Okay.
Tundra disappointing. Entropy, I'm still on the fence waiting on this team. And I know I got in trouble for talking about them on stream, but I am on the fence on this team right now.
Tundra's a team that should do so much better, and I hate them for getting rid of T-Man. Because I think T-Man and Mar just together would have been so good, but it looks like they never really played together. They were kind of the subs for each other. And I think this roster should have done better. We all thought this roster was going to be the one that challenged the Trojans. So with that not happening anymore, I think it's really this next few weeks are going to really make or break them. And we're going to see where they go from there. Entropy, I'm so upset because Blind is probably one of the best AAA players, not like skill wise, just like fun wise, that I've gotten to play with. Like he's fun to just sit and talk to, and he's a cool dude. And I wish he was doing better. I know Gibby is better than what his stat shows. Guy, I don't know too much about him. Yuki's doing well. Um, I know he was a major like hard sub for the Lions last season, and I think he definitely is a good player, and I think this team should be better than what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, I really did like when I played with Sky and Blind. They're really great guys, and I know they took some offense to what I had said on stream, so I do apologize for that. But it wasn't like, again, not personal when I said a lot of this stuff. It's just that they needed to figure out, could they play them? Because when they don't play them, I don't think the entropy looks any good. But either way, so we'll see. Can they, salvage that back? I think the Tundra are probably in the worst spot that they could be right now. They need to figure something out. They need to win a game and turn things around. But if you're going to rely on Mar to carry you over teams like the Thunder and the Heat, you're dreaming. So, or even the Geese if you make it to finals. So good luck with that. Okay, the final little bit here we're going to talk about Vipers, Owls, Osprey. Let's talk about Vipers individually and then Owls and Osprey. Vipers 6-4. Again, doing well for the org. Right behind the Geese. You would expect them to take playoffs, so the Owls are not quite out of it yet. They look good. They have a plus 11 goal differential, and they've turned things around. Mikituch goes to this team. I think he's actually doing really well with this team. But I think they have potential. They're not quite a dark horse contender level team for me yet. I think they would struggle against a team like the Bobcats or perhaps the Bulldogs, but they're almost there. And I think, where I would want to see better from them is not their offense actually, because they go for a lot of demos and stuff like that, but it's like consistent team play, right? They do go for a lot of demos, which sometimes opens them up to mistakes. But either way, look like a good team. I have hope. I have faith that these guys are going to make playoffs. I don't think they'll catch Geese, but I think they'll be making playoffs. They look pretty decent.
I agree with you. They will definitely edge out Owls. Um, and Osprey are completely out of it. Not completely, but pretty much out of it at this point. I don't think Owls have what it takes to overtake them, so I'm sure they'll slot into that wild card spot.
Awesome.
I think the Vipers make it. I don't think the Owls or Osprey are catching up. I think if anything, the Owls have a slight shot if the Dolphins keep going downhill of maybe clutching in like a third wild card spot from the Wild Division, but I don't really see it happening. The Osprey though, I think they're out of it. I think if they even have a chance of making it, it's going to be in this next week where the Osprey would have to 2-0 and like the Vipers and the Owls would have to go 0-2 and the Dolphins and like there's too much where just the Osprey are out. I don't think they're making it.
Yeah, it's so for the Vipers, the only concern I would have for them is, as Reflex just said in chat, he's had to sub up a lot. So if they can't field a roster, that's going to be concerning. But for the Owls and the Osprey, for them finally for the end of AAA here, Owls, we had thought they had done well in preseason, and I had thought they'd be a little better with spacing and everything. Regular season, they've struggled and a bit disappointing. They've started to turn around a little bit. They're not out of it, but the problem is going to be that they have to play in our conference or in our division again. The Osprey, I tried again and again to see what they could do on stream, and every time they just got a little worse. So that'll be a free matchup for most of the teams in the division. So that'll give you a win if you're the Owls, but will it give you enough wins? I think the only way I see the Owls actually making playoffs is if the Predator division beats itself up so much because it's so close they could sneak through just by farming a few wins here or there, especially if the Vipers can't field their roster, right? So I could see it. They're not out of it. I think the Owls have the best chance of anybody that's low right now to do that, especially if the Predator division beats itself up. But Osprey, you're pretty much done. It didn't work out. I'm not sure what's going on with this roster. Every time I ask Stevie about it, he's just like, we don't talk about it. 2-8 with a -8 goal differential. You would thought they had some potential in this team, but they just really could never realize it. And even their stats are not terrible, so they really just haven't figured things out. I don't think they will going through the rest of the season. They're pretty much eliminated anyways. So what are you guys' opinions on these two teams?
I'm disappointed in the Owls, especially with how much Remy talked them up. Uh, if they are going to make it into playoffs, Spacey's got to play. He's just got to, because nobody else on the team can really score consistently, and it looks like everybody else on the team is trying to facilitate to Spacey. So he's got to be there. He's got to be the main man if they're gonna try to make it back. Osprey, I'm just disappointed.
Elson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really the same. Owls, as I said, they have a slight chance. A lot would have to happen, but the Osprey, I think we cut them out. They need to focus on next season and what decisions they want to make for the future. But this roster's done. They're over. Like, there's no chance of them making playoffs. And if they were in some miracle to make it, they would be first rounded, and that's that.
Yeah, the problem for me for Osprey is they don't have a top tier talent of AAA, and I think you at this level you start to need that, particularly with how volatile AAA is. So we'll see what they do with this team, and if I had to guess, they'll probably break it out and chop out their players. But uh, either way, I mean, a couple players are on season 1 of 2 contracts as well, so they will have to keep a couple of them. But so you move to pretty much that's it, right? AAA. So again, we're gonna go through with our like this team's gonna win safe pick, and also this is my dark horse team. But LSM, let's start with you this time. Who is your safe pick? Who's your dark horse?
Um, Safe, obviously Trojans. I think they're gonna storm their side of the bracket. Now, my dark horse, I really think it's gonna be the Vipers or the Dolphins. I'm gonna say them both because I think really it depends on what rosters they both run with. If Vipers run with their main roster, I think they're really, really good. And I think if the Dolphins get to run with their main roster, I think they could easily be one of the best.
Okay, Klopp, what do you think?
So I don't even need to say my safe pick. My dark horse is going to be the Thunder. I just really like this group of guys, so I think I'm gonna stick with them. They vibe really well together. They're a very solid team, and if they get hot at the right time, they can make a good run.
Okay. All right, here's my next hot take here. So my safe pick is the Geese, um, because I think Flip has what it takes to go the distance here, and he's hungry for the chip, and I think he's built a really good team. My dark horse pick is actually a tie between the Thunder and the Raiders because Raiders beat the Trojans already. I think they can do it again and knock them out of a surprising conference. And I think the Thunder have potential. But if I had to choose one of the two, my dark horse is going to be the Raiders. Again, because they beat the Trojans, which is something that the Thunder are going to end up having to do eventually. Because if you had to guess the way this works out, it's probably going to be Trojans v. Raiders round one if you were to do it today, and Thunder v. Heat, if I remember correctly, probably is the way this would work out or something similar. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that's my guaranteed Geese, dark horses between Raiders and Thunder, and I'm going to have to go with the Raiders on that one. So we'll see. And again, we'll make a bracket and we'll do a bracket for everybody before we get into playoffs. But finally, we've reached the end major, and I know we're like 2 hours into this, so we're going to get through this, get done. Major. Let's start as always with the Panthers, right? 8-2 because Gatman has gone on vacation. I actually thought this team would do better without him there. But I also think they've had to pull some subs from AAA like as well. I would normally say it doesn't bode well that you can't do well without your main and I still thought the back three of them would be good. I still think though that full strength Panthers is still the best team in major. And yeah, I think they are my greatest playoff winner this season. Again, going for the 2-time.
Yeah, so Gat's on vacation. Deluxe has scheduling issues. Insanity's had power issues. Kiro just is sometimes here and sometimes isn't. So fielding 3 players this week has been really, really tough. Malice has had to come up and play for them a lot, but with Gatman Deluxe and Insanity, Kiro can sub out for pretty much any of those two, and I think they're a very, very hard team to beat.
Mm-hmm. Elson, what do you think?
I agree with that. I think really when it comes to major, the Panthers are the best team right now, undeniably almost. There's 2 teams I think are close, but other than that, I think even without their main roster, they're still hard to challenge.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. I know Gatman was in major chat. He's like, "Oh, after the losses, he's like, we'll let Dead Medics Pirates be number one for a while." And I was like, "I still don't think I would put us number one. Like, just because you lost a guy and lost 2 games doesn't mean I'm gonna suddenly say we're better than you because you're not playing your full roster, right? Like, I don't. That's not the way that works. But yeah. So it's interesting. We actually Major's been kind of incredible. We have 4 teams at 8-2. One of the best record sort of series that you'll see of any conference. And so with that, I want to go through all of those teams. And next, I want to hop to the Cobras here. 8-2. Obviously all the drama that happened in the beginning of the season, and you haven't gotten to see them because they're banned from stream. But I have always said that this was one of my top tier teams in major. They're standing by that. They look really good. The argument has always been when they try, they win games. They're 8-2 with a plus 26 goal differential. First of all, let me give the credit where credit is due. They're 8-2 Panthers with a plus 83 goal differential, and that's after losing 2 games by not having most of your roster. So they are on up there. But the Cobras, yeah, so they're looking really good across the board, and they know exactly who they want to play, right? They haven't fielded Bex one time. That's Danger, Toxic, and Mad Mark. Or Mad Max RK, either way. They know who they want to play. They look like a really good team. They have 1 cap space remaining, so they built the roster right. And they are going to be probably the hardest opponent for the Panthers to get to playoff final.
Yeah, I still think that Panthers beat them out, but the Cobras is a very, very well put together roster. And even in their division, they have a 3-game cushion, and we're 10 games in. So unless they fall apart in their division games, I think they are no doubt for playoffs.
Well, what do you think?
I think the Cobras are the only standpoint between this Panthers roster and finals. when it comes to this side of the conference. Now for actual finals, I think there's other team, but Toxic and Mad Max are really good. I got the experience of subbing up and playing with them against the Kings. As y'all saw, I mean the Kings are I they're not the best team in Major. That's all I gotta say.
They're
Y'all saw
actually
the
tied for the
screen.
worst. Yeah.
Y'all saw the screenshot. But yes, throughout that game, the Toxic and Mad Max were really good. So
Yeah, and I actually agree with Nustar. But I want you guys' take on this. He says the Cobras are actually, in his opinion, the worst 8-2 team in Major right now of the skill, and I actually agree with him on that. But what do you guys think of that statement?
I don't follow Major close enough to really have an opinion, but I think, yeah, it's right. Pirates are better because Rex there. That's all I got. I love my Rec.
All right. Well, speaking of which, let's go. Well, actually, Ellison, I want to ask you same thing really quick before we do that. Cobra's worst 8-2 team, or not in your opinion?
it's so iffy because I think that Mike just put a really good point in chat that I agree with. The Cobras, like when I played with them, there was no calming. We were joking the entire time, like laughing and stuff. They don't try. And I think when they really sit down and try, which I'm hoping to see when they play like the Panthers, because they play them this Thursday. I think if they sit down and try, maybe for once, like if they beat the Panthers, I think that'll change everyone's mind. If not, I think it'll be like a recreation of the Pirates, a game I think they should have won, but they got 3-0'd because I don't think they probably just didn't care.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, let's go ahead and transition that to then the back to 8-2 teams. I So Pirates are 8-2. Good roster. And obviously, I built this roster, so I'm a little biased there. But we start Rec, Bob, and Pundaz, the really good group of guys. The comms are always on point when I'm in there. We did lose recently to the Spartans, who are also 8-2. We're 8-2 with a plus 23 goal differential. They're 8-2 with a plus 18. But the Spartans, to me, have the greatest major turnaround of any team, because I had said going into the season that I thought Jost and QZK were going for the 2-time to finals, and this time we're going to try to win it. And I still think they are. They are an incredible team. I was not present for the game, but it was about what I expected. It was a close one. It was, but I think a game 5, but they ended up winning. And in my opinion, I believe in my boys, my Pirates boys, but I think the Spartans are right there with us, if not a little bit above. And I think the difference there is Jost and QZK. Like, they are an incredible team all the way around. They were incredible last season. But both of these teams really good. It's going to be a battle for these two, not only for Brawler Division lead, but also for playoffs, because realistically, Elements Division doesn't hold a candle to either of these two teams. Like, maybe there would be a dark horse in like the Storm, but like overall, I think you're going to see these two in the conference finals. What are your guys' opinions of these two teams?
Just briefly looking at the rest of this Brawler division, Kings are at 2-8 and Lumberjacks are at 2-8. So I think these two are pretty much a lock for playoffs. I think Spartans are going to be a dark horse, but I don't know if they overtake Rec, Bob, and Pundez when they are on top of their game.
Yeah, we still haven't even pulled in Super Sub Me yet. You know what I'm saying? So I got to bring us to
Irrelevant.
bring us to the finish line.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. LSM, what do you think of these two?
Um, it's really, I think in the long run, the Spartans are better than the Pirates. I think the Pirates are obviously looking at their stats and stuff really good. They're 8-2, and I think they'll definitely be really good in playoffs. I think it'll come down to a semifinals matchup between the Pirates and the Spartans, but in the end, I think the Spartans are just going to recreate last season and do really well in the playoffs. So I also
It's
think that you'll have the freest conference other than the Spartans that I've ever seen. Like there's it's 8-2, two 8-2 teams, then two 2-8 teams. Like
yeah. Uh,
yeah.
I will say that I think these two actually are the best examples of the best rosters you could build in Major, besides like Panthers, who What I mean by that is a roster that you don't just benefit from like MMRs being low for value. Because I think that, again, I've said this before, Panthers have the best performance per value point of like MMR per performance of any team. But I think the Pirates and the Spartans are what you would, and I know I'm a little biased again because I built one of these teams, but especially because I built it after everybody else had built their teams. But is one of the best ways you could build these teams, but in radically different ways. So for the Pirates, it's the best way you could build a 2K team with lower MMRs, right? Because we have a 2K in rec and then 17 and belows, right? With Bob and Pun and me. But Spartans did 219 and 217 slash 217 low 17s, right? So the two different ways you could build rosters, and you're seeing the strengths of both, I think, in my opinion, right? Where QZK and Jost work together really well as 219s, right at 19, with a solid third in Quack. But Pirates work really well off of Bob and Rec and working together. Bob, again, I think Bob, and I know some people have said Kuro, but in my opinion, Bob is the single best player for his tracker MMR. I think he's easily a 19 level player. He just isn't. So, take that for what you will in that debate, but that's where I'm at with this. So I think that's an interesting stylistic difference you get to see from this division as well. But moving on, we're going to talk about the Elements division, and then we'll go through the bottom here of Major. But actually, before we do that, I do want to go to the Sharks because this has been a point of contention for a lot of teams. I remember I got memed on, and I don't really talk in Major Chat anymore because everybody was like, "Sharks are number one. Sharks are the best," and Sharks sit at 6-4. And yeah, they had to sub out Slice, and then they had to sub out Nuss. But what I always said was, you can't rely on Slice to make you number one. And I still don't think this is a top 3 team. I still think this is a top 5 team. But what do you guys think of the Sharks team? There was a lot of debate on well, there wasn't a lot of debate. There was, this team is the best, Nuss is the best, Slice is the best. And then there was me, who was like, shut down Slice. It's very, not, I wouldn't say easy, but a surefire way to win, and it has worked for teams. So what do you guys think of the Sharks team?
I think the Sharks team is still good. I don't think I'd slot yeah, 5 is about right. Maybe 4. Slice is really good, but if you can shut him down, it becomes a little easier. I haven't seen him play recently, so I don't know how you would do that. I'm very impressed with Nuss though. Coming from Double A, everybody's saying he's a sandbagger, and he actually took that really well. But coming up to Major and performing is really good to see.
I'm not surprised at all. I thought he had the potential. He's looked as good as he did back then, in my opinion. I think you're right in that he held strong with the mental, but I always knew he was a talented guy. So, and he would have to be the second for this team. But Allison, what's your opinion on the Sharks?
Yeah, it's sort of the same thing where I really think this is a roster that they have a lot of potential with it. I know Slice is good, obviously. Nuss is good. I think if DTR just steps up a little bit more, he's good from what I've heard. But I think if he steps up a little bit more, I think they will be definitely a playoff team, and I hope to see better things come out from them in the long run.
I was debating on saying this. So I'm not going to name my source, but there was a guy who told me the other day that this team is not as good as it could be because DTR and Grambo are two of the worst major players in Major. Um, Now I know Grambo was in chat, and I like Grambo. He's a nice guy, and so I'm not going to agree or disagree with that. But on at least here, but Grimbo obviously said he hasn't played right in a while, and I could see that. Right, he hasn't really moved in any of his stats, so he hasn't been playing a ton. Um, so when you're looking at DTR in particular, um, I do think that I know they built this roster for friendship, but I don't know that he complements this roster well. And I don't mean that they should have kept me over DTR. No, I just don't know that DTR is, I think he's one of the most overpriced players for his skill level. And I say that because the amount of screenshots that people have sent me of beating him in ranked, I beat him in ranked, he just doesn't perform like a high 18 to me. He just doesn't. And that's unfortunate. And I think this team could be a top 3 team, like many had said, if you got a better third for Nuss and Slice. And I just don't think they have that. I don't think they have the potential to go through playoffs. They will get beat by the Panthers if they make it there. Although the Lions are finally starting to gain on them, and I actually think the Lions have a very good shot of catching them and knocking them out of playoff contention. But I know I've been very negative on the Sharks, but I still think this is a decent team. And I think they have a lot of potential. They have surprised my expectations in a good way. I think they could make playoff, but they have got to figure out somehow how to beat these teams that recognize that I'm going to go after Slice or I'm going to cut Slice off. We actually saw this on stream very well. When Slice was on stream, the team they played, I forget who it was at the time now, but he just they hard challenged Slice at like every opportunity and cut him off. Didn't allow him time to dribble, to move, to any of that, and they beat him up consistently. And I think that is where you start to see some of the weakness and where this is going to have to get fixed for this team. I really hope they figure it out. I like Nuss and I like this team and I like Slice and I liked the boys. Like I said, I like Grimma. I liked when I played with these guys. They're nice guys. They're good guys, but they have got to figure it out because they haven't right now. And I think you can see that in their goals per game, right? Nobody above a 0.7. Slice is the highest at 0.79. You got to figure that out. But moving on. So let's talk about Elements Division. Let's talk about Whitecaps and Flames. Whitecaps 6-4, Flames 4-6. Flames tied for second right now with Storm. I actually think Storm take the better of that matchup, but we'll get to that. Whitecaps though 6-4. Surprising in a good way for me for this team. 64 plus 10. I doubted this team. I knew this was another repeat team, and I did not know how they'd stack up. They stacked up really well to me, and they are doing pretty well. And I think they're a strong contender for the top of Elements Division right now. Or they are top of Elements, but I mean strong contender all the way through.
Yeah, I don't think that. I know Trotz has talked about his Flames team a lot. I don't think that they really have the capacity to overtake the Whitecaps, especially if the Whitecaps stay solid in their divisional matches.
LSM.
Say what?
We're
Wait,
talking
what
about
team are we on now?
the
I'm sorry.
Whitecaps and the Flames, but talking about the Whitecaps right now.
So the Whitecaps is a team I don't know enough about. Really, the only team I even or player I know on that team is Yor, and I mean he's a good player, but stats wise and everything, this team just does not seem to be doing as well as some other major players. Definitely not a bad team. They are the top of the division, but they could be. I could definitely see improvement over time. Now for the Flames, this is a team that really is. It's iffy because I thought they would be doing better. I know John Waite is a really good player from what I've been told. Virus has an amazing goals per game. And then Bravo, isn't that I Hate Soccer? That's Bravo.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Bravo is definitely a better player than what his stats show. His assists are good, but his goals just seem to be low. And then Chubik only playing 2 series, but looks like when he did play, he did do good. So I think they should be better than 4-2, but it just does not seem to be working out for them right now.
4-6.
Four
Or
and
you mean 4
six,
number
same
2?
difference.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired. We've been here a while.
Yeah, we're about done, but I didn't really say anything about the Flames, so I will say that I have been really hard on this team. I have not liked this team. I've been very open about that. 4-6, 0 goal differential. I didn't think this team was good, and a lot of the reason was people were like, "Well, they're not good without Virus." Well, Virus didn't show up for a long time. Then he did, but then John Waite was going to get traded possibly, or Virus was actually I think on the trade block, not John Waite. And then who knew what was happening? But apparently, they're keeping this roster. I think they could make a surprising back push for Elements Division top, or at least for the wild card. And the reason for that is I think Virus and John Wade are staying. And from what Trotz had said the other day, they're considering putting Chubik in more than Bravo. I think that's a mistake. Everybody's like, oh, Chubik is actually the best sleeper major player. I don't think Chubik is a good major player. I'm going to be honest, but just in the same way that I'm not, I don't think he's anywhere ready for major, and so I don't think they should make that change. But they're going to need to figure something out because their offense is not good, and they need to figure that out. Really what they need to do is field Virus and John Waite. That's what they have to figure out how to do, and if they can, I think they can catch up to the Whitecaps. As a team, I think they have the potential to do so. But I think, like somebody said in chat, Whitecaps are the most consistent team right now in that division, and so I don't see them getting overtaken for the guaranteed spot. But Flames still need to figure out how to beat the Storm. So, Klopp, what are your thoughts on these Flames?
I touched on him slightly before you. I think Chubik is good, but he needs to play more, and I think we're too far into the season to really shake that up. If you are confident in Bravo being able to bounce back and start scoring the ball more, Trotz has high praise for John Waite, so I believe in him and Virus, but it's going to really be a matter of meshing a third and figuring out who he wants to play.
Yeah. All right. So moving to the next one. We'll talk about. Let's just go ahead and talk about Storm and Ascension real quick. So Storm, I actually was pleasantly surprised when we played them. We didn't lose, but they're a really good team. I think DFX knows what he's doing, and he's over there trying to get them together. So I could see them overtaking the Flames if the Flames can end up fielding John Waite and Virus consistently throughout the rest of the season. I think they have the potential to take a wild card here. Ascension, not much to say on them. They squeaked out 2 wins. They're I've been told they're a team of friends, and that's why they stayed together and didn't make any roster moves. I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to make that. I don't really think they care. So they're just guys having fun, and that's respectable.
I don't know enough about either of these two teams to really give an opinion, but since you did bring it up, um, if you're gonna play with friends, good for you. Like, do your thing. It doesn't have to all be about winning. And I know a lot of us in this league are competitive, but if you have friends in this league and you just want to play a season with your friends, by all means, do what you wish.
Hello, Sam.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think again, it's teams I don't know too much about when it comes to this aspect, but I personally, and this is something I think a lot, is when you join a league, you need to make the decision of do you want to play for fun or do you want to play competitively? Now, for fun, I don't mean like throw in everything. I mean like if I could be on a team with my friends and just see how the season goes, win or lose, we don't care, and enjoy it, then do that. By all means, if that's what you enjoy, do it, and I hope you have fun, and I hope it works well for you. But if not, then you need to play more competitive. You need to be willing to drop those friends and play with the players that you're going to be able to win with and do good with.
Mhm. They are having fun though, so that is that. But what do you think of the Storm?
Now, for the Storm, it's again, I don't know a lot about them. If I remember correctly, last season they had Ryan O'Neal, and that was like one of their better players. He's not playing this season, and with the roster that is playing, I mean, S. Dot sounds familiar. I don't know enough about him. It's like none of these players really I know. Like
Yeah.
It's the Ryan here is not the Ryan I know, so
Yeah, it's.
uh,
I think though picking him up was good for this team, and they look better. And I think they have, like I said, a lot of potential to beat the Flames. But do I think they're like a top tier finals playoffs? No, I don't. Um, at least not right now. But they're still a good team, so respect to them. Like you said, Rhino, their GM, not playing this season. Their AGM is scraps. So moving on from that, let's talk about Lions and Bulls. So Lions were disappointing to start. They kept losing games, and I thought they would win. They were high on their team, but they're 5-5 with a plus 15. So they get close, and I think they are turning their season around. They look a lot better. I think the Sharks have a cause for concern because the Lions are hot on their tail, and that to me is going to be the battle for that second wild card and Predator, right? Or that first wild card and Predator. I think the Lions absolutely could catch up to the Sharks. The problem is going to be, of course, their head-to-head matchup is when the Lions have to win. The Lions have the potential, but can they fulfill it? They're also going to pretty much need to win out here and hope that the Sharks can't. Something comes up or Slice doesn't play well one night or whatever. That's what the Lions are hoping for. So they're close. The Bulls. I know that Soares is coming back. They picked up Melio. They've got M. Dot. They've got Bunce and Zayo. I think they're going to keep Zayo and drop Bunce, if I remember correctly, if the MMR works out that way. Otherwise, they might drop M. Dot. But so you're going to bring back Soares. Here's the thing. It's too little, too late. It's 2-18, negative 61 goal differential. If this was the team that started, it would be a lot different. But This is still not a team that beats Panthers. It's still not a team that will end up making playoffs. They're not out of it unless like the Sharks and the Lions just literally fall apart, which I don't see. But in my opinion, it is too little, too late with 8 games left in the season.
Yeah. Lions, I don't really have an opinion on. I don't know them well enough, so I'm not gonna spew. Bulls, I think this is a really good roster now. Soares wasn't playing for a little while. Bunce only played a couple series, and if they dropped him, he might be back in school. But if they just wanted to drop him and keep Zayo too, that works. But I think this is a solid team now. But you just don't have the time. You have to win. You basically have to win out, and a lot of people got to lose. And I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. LSM?
I think that, in all honesty, if actually something cool, just because we were doing it in real time. The Bulls roster actually just updated to the roster it is now. Bunce went non-playing, so it is now Soares, M. Milio, and Zayo.
And they made him go non-playing. We all know it, so they didn't take the buyout penalty because otherwise they couldn't sign this team.
Most likely, but all in all, I think the Soares and Milio last season, obviously, we know were really, really good together. Do I think M. or Zayo is going to be able to replace Miggs? No, because as much as I didn't like the way Miggs acted half the time, Miggs is a really good player. And I think that they'll definitely do good, but playoffs, I think, is out of reach by this point.
They do, however, have the best chance of any team, in my opinion, RLPC right now, to play spoiler because of those divisional matchups. Because you can take the must needed win from the Lions or from the Sharks or whatever and even them up or however you want to do that. So that is kind of scary in that regard. Coming back to do that. And I guess you build your team for next season for this way. I've floated the idea. It's sort of interesting. I'll get you guys' take on it later, but I don't necessarily like that. I've seen a lot of players this season go non-playing for a week because they're really mad, and then they go, "Actually, you know what? I want to come back playing. Actually, I want to go non-playing. Actually, I want to come back playing again." I think it should be more permanent, like for a full season or something like that, or 6 weeks. Because I think if you're going to make that decision and make Sheets team go through all the effort of getting you non-playing and all that stuff, and messing around with team MMRs and trying new people, it needs to be a more firm decision than week by week. Am I playing or am I not? I don't like that. It makes it really hard to track who's on what, where. And I think maybe it needs to be a more permanent solution if you're going to do that, whether it's the full season or 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. Um, so we can talk about that after this. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how they play spoiler. And for the Lions, they're gonna have to win out from here. I know Mike says that most of their losses are because they don't have their full roster for whatever reason. Obviously, some of their players have gotten hacked, some and other stuff. So we'll see what they can do going forward. Eagles Hawks, 5-5 teams tied for second in the Wild Division. We saw the matchup on stream, and I literally predicted perfectly because I said Eagles without Luca are nothing. And he was on the trade block. Well, he ends up playing for this team and is still on this team, hasn't been traded. Maybe he stays. I don't know that he wants to. Without him, this is a bottom tier team. He is their team. We saw that happen because the Hawks, I said they need to play Daffy. If they play Daffy, they win. Doesn't matter if Lucas stays, but if they don't, they lose. What do the Hawks do? Not play Daffy. The Hawks lose. The Hawks are a bottom tier team without Daffy. This is the problem with both of these bird teams. Without their top player, in my opinion, they are nothing. They are not good teams. And they're struggling. So whoever wins second in this division, in my opinion, does not make it very far into playoffs because unless the Hawks have the best chance if Daffy plays. If Daffy plays, they are going to be a hard ask to beat up until you get to the conference final. If he plays. If he does not. And so credit to the team for being where they are with him being in and out. If he does not, this team is free in the beginning. Eagles, they are more solid in that Luca completes them better and has played more for them. And if he stays on the roster, they will be better. But if he ends up leaving, which it looked like he might, this team's done.
I think right now it's a coin flip just because of all the uncertainty of if Luca's gonna stay or play, and if Daffy's gonna play. Daffy's only played 5 series. Luca at least is showing up He showed up to 9 games. But if he's on the block, he might be disheartened too. So I think it's a coin toss between who's gonna take second in the division. Um, I don't see either of these teams going far in playoffs.
LSM.
I think it's really the same thing. I mean, one, I didn't know this until like a week ago, which is surprising. Luca's 4, just so y'all know. I didn't know this, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so I think it really does depend on the situation, though. I mean, if Daffy doesn't play for the Hawks, I think they're out of it. If 4 leaves the Eagles or does something, I think they're also out of it because I think 4 is really the one person keeping Mitch together. And I think if Mitch loses it, then this team it's done. It's over. Both are close to beating out the Lions for that wild card spot. So really, it's like this would be the worst time for them to fall apart right now.
Yeah, well, the problem is, from what I understand from a few sources, the Eagles have constantly threatened to quit as a roster, to all go non-playing and whatever, because they wanted certain players on the team that aren't on the team for different reasons, particularly MMR. So I just don't know what this team is going to do and what they're going to be going forward. Same with the Hawks. It's going to be rough. We're going to have to see. Somebody has got to take second in that division. So unless they both quit and they free it up so much that you get a 3-way playoff from Predator Division, which I could see, and I bet the Lions are like, please, because technically the Lions are tied with the Eagles and Hawks right now. So that's actually really good for them if they can continue to win and these two, don't. Okay. Let's go ahead and just knock the Ducks out here. Couple players on this team had smurfed in other leagues. They're still here. Interestingly, this team is basically done. They're 3-7. They're not good. They don't show up half the time. They thought it was funny when they didn't show up for Dream. I don't know what this team is doing. I truly don't. I don't understand what they're doing. They're not a good team. They don't show up half the time. When they do, sometimes they'll win, but why sign up if you're not going to play? Is sort of my question.
I don't know, honestly. I get that something's come up, like you have school, you're changing jobs. A lot of people in this league have kids, they have families, they have real jobs. They're very busy. But at the same time, if you're going to commit to doing something, at least put in a little bit of effort.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think this roster, this duck has fallen out of the sky so long ago. They don't care, and it's obvious. And I think just let them finish out the season. And I think these players really need to step away, or they need to get on a team that they actually care with, because they're good players from what I've heard, and I think they should definitely be able to make this league more competitive with them trying. But it's sort of like the Cobras, except the opposite. The Cobras don't try, but at least they show up and they win sometimes. The Ducks, they don't show up.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think Flip is just very obsessed with his AAA team that he's on and hasn't really made the moves necessary to fix this team. Speaking of which, we're getting to the end here, and we have the Kings and the Lumberjacks as our final topics here. Kings 2-8, Lumberjacks 2-8. The Kings, the 2 wins were interesting wins. I've consistently said, and I will consistently say it, that they are a AAA-ish, well, not really AAA team because they have Lantern, but they're not a good team. I know a lot of people are like, yo, ET's the best. I haven't proved it to me. They're not a decent team. I think Typhon ends up quitting this team if possible before trade deadline. They're basically done. I never had high hopes for them going into the season, and I wasn't disappointed. Lumberjacks, same thing. They're actually a lot worse. They're 2-8 with a -30 over a 2-8 with a -20 from the Kings. You get Chickens back on this Lumberjacks team. He's only played 1 series. He came back playing. But I mean, first of all, they're out of it, and second of all, I don't even think he helps this team. Again, as we talked about, this whole org, in my opinion, suffers from a lack of leadership. So, yeah, like you said, freest division for us, really, us and Spartans. Unfortunately, the way these teams worked out and the way that these guys play or don't play, or I mean, credit to the Kings. I know that you get teams like the Ducks who don't show up, but the Kings, even though they have lost, they show out. And so super big props to them. They try their best. They come out every week. They try to be better. And I have a lot of respect for this Kings team. The Lumberjacks, some respect. They just haven't really. Sometimes they show, sometimes they don't. Same thing. And I mean, I try not to be mean. There's just not much to say about them.
So, real quick, just because this is a big game changer, if this is right, at least. First of all, the Lumberjacks are actually 4-6 apparently. I'm looking at their schedule, and it says right now they beat the Spartans. They've beat Storm, Ascension, and Kings, so they should be 4-6. And if that's the case, they're in the chance to steal that wild card spot from the Elements division. They've also beat the Spartans. Again, that's a big win. And they also, as you said, they have Chickens coming back, who is a really good player from, as we saw last season, when the Lumberjacks made semifinals and playoffs. So a lot of big information I just saw, and yeah.
I mean, it makes them more interesting for sure. But you're sort of too far gone behind the top two teams there, maybe, in my opinion. We'll have to see if they can maybe catch up somehow. What do you think,
If,
Klopp?
if they beat Spartans again, then I think the race is on. But they got to keep up. That's really their only shot at getting back in.
Yeah.
But I don't know anybody on either of these two rosters, so that's all I have.
All right. Well, I don't think I missed anybody. So that's our rankings for P4. And I got to ask before we get out of major, though, give me your safe pick and your dark horse pick. Let's start with you, Klopp.
Panthers for my safe pick, and then I'll stick with the Pirates for my dark horse pick.
Cobb. Awesome.
Okay, Panthers for my safe pick, and I'm gonna pull it out. My dark horse pick, and I would love to see this, and it would be amazing. I'm gonna say the Lumberjacks. I'm gonna say they steal that third wild card spot from the Elements division, and they somehow, like, they match up against the Spartans, they win, and they play the Pirates, and somehow, some way, something happens and they win, and then they get destroyed by the Panthers like 30-0. So
Okay. Well, if you ever need confirmation, LSM's pullout game's weak. Well, there you go. What a take. Jesus Christ. Um, First of all, from what Mike said, and actually this would make a lot of sense, the Lumberjacks keep forgetting to submit logs when they win. If so, they only got one freebie and then they lose, right? It's not counted as a win anymore. Nobody wins if that happens. If the way I understand this is correct, Elson, you might be able to confirm this. If they keep doing that, that's why. They keep getting no win, even though they won. Does that make sense? Nobody wins because of that. So if that's true, then they're done still. If that is the case for the Lumberjacks, which I actually could see because I remember seeing something about that. But yeah, so for me, safe pick Panthers. I mean, you just can't not. And I wrestled with dark horse being Spartans or Pirates. I know everybody's like it's 8-2 at dark horse, but it is when you're talking about the Panthers. Okay. So and I wrestled and I wanted to go Spartans originally, but I'm going to go with the Pirates, and not because they're my team, because when I get into these voice calls with these boys, they even on their losses, they're upbeat. They know what they needed to do to get better. They knew how they needed to fix it. I believe the Spartans loss ended up being an own goal by pun from what he had said in the end. Like so they feel like these are good games. They don't feel entirely beat. Their biggest challenge in my head for the mental is going to be against Panthers after the first time we played them and what happened. We didn't field our full roster, to be fair, but uh, so I have to go Dark Horse Pirates because I truly believe in the boys. And again though, I mean Spartans, if they go all the way again and we get Panthers v Spartans, no love lost. Like I think that's incredible because I think the Spartans, just because they bring that championship team back does not mean they're going to be as good. And all the love to them. They have done a phenomenal job of grinding themselves back up, particularly after preseason and getting back into this game. So those are our ratings for all the teams right now and our personal opinions for P4. And again, we did have an Indy Tuesday. So if you guys are interested in that, the VOD is, of course, on Twitch, and we'll try to get it on YouTube as quick as possible. So yeah, you guys agree, disagree, you can let us know. It's whatever. We will probably be back Tuesday, maybe not. It depends. Of course, this was a special episode this weekend, but thank you guys. This was a 3-hour endeavor. So thank you, LSM and Claw, for sticking with me on this one. And thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if it is live, you can ask us any questions next week. And we will be making brackets for playoffs once we get a little closer. Anything else you guys wanted to say before we hop out of here?
Nope.
I'm good. I'm ready to
Alrighty.
go.
Alrighty, guys.
I'm
Well,
done.
thank you for listening, for watching, whatever you guys are doing. And we will catch you guys next time.